Chapter 1475. Lin, he couldn't think of anything else. He had that could tempt the ice palace. One fruit could be bought with money, but the ice palace probably wouldn't sell it to Lin E, and he'd have to use a chi gathering pill to exchange for one. At that time, Yu Bing would see the chi gathering pill as well, and he'd think of what happened to Elder Yu. So instead of letting him suspect, he might as well tell the truth. Of course, Lin E didn't know that Elder Yu hid the fact that the pill was stolen from him, and lied that he didn't find it. It's not us, it's you and my father. But it belongs to whoever got it. There's no grudge, Yu Bing said. But you're quite strong. I finally understand why you said you had the confidence to take on an Earth class. Too bad. My father was just one step away from breaking through to Sky class. I was planning to use this pill to exchange for the fruit, so I'm sorry I can't give it to you. I know how important this is to your family, but I need it too. Linny said, but I left one for Elder Yu. Isn't it for your father? There's someone from House Yu who's breaking through to Sky class? What? You left one for him? Yu Bing paused. You're saying that Elder Yu has another chi gathering pill with him? Yeah. Why, you didn't know? Lin E looked at Yu Bing strangely. Didn't he tell you? No. Yu Bing took a deep breath, a dark look flashing across his face. It seems like the practitioners from the Common World House Yu are not on the same side as us. He's been hiding the pill. Common House Yu? You mean Elder Yu is from the Common House Yu? Could it be Yu Shuixing's big brother? That Earth class. Lin E blinked. Yes, it's him. Yu Bing laughed coldly. This time, you don't have to worry. If Yu Huixing really took the pill for himself, then we, the Hidden House Yu, wouldn't need to support the Common House Yu anymore, and the conflict between you and the Hidden House Yu would be resolved. The problem isn't this. It's Xiao Ning herself. Lin E didn't want to mention this name, but since things had reached this point, he couldn't avoid it. Your family's expectations of her are too high, and your expectations of me are too low. I don't know if all this can be changed in the future, but at least not now. And I already have a girlfriend. You already have a girlfriend? Yu Bing was shocked. He only paid attention to Lin Yi's recent actions in Songshan, making enemies with so many powerhouses, but he didn't really care about Lin Yi's private life. So when Lin Yi brought it up, Yu Bing's heart sank. He didn't know if his sister would be able to accept this news. But Yu Bing couldn't blame Lin Yi for anything. After all, Lin Yi didn't give his sister any promises back then. It was all her wishful thinking. At first, Yu Bing even thought that his sister had grown up in the family and hadn't seen much of the world. So when she saw Lin Yi for the first time, she would fall for him. But after returning to the family for a while, or meeting other outstanding men, she would forget about Lin Yi. But that wasn't the case. As he interacted with Lin Yi more, Yu Bing realized how amazing Lin Yi was. Especially this time, Yu Bing really admired Lin Yi. He actually dared to do anything, snatching food from the tiger's mouth from an Earth class. Even with Yu Bing's background, he wouldn't dare to do something like this. But Lin Yi did it, and he succeeded. He couldn't compare to this level of skill. Yes, I have. Lin Yi nodded. And there's two. Lin Yi didn't try to hide it. His goal was to tell Yu Ning, through Yu Bing's mouth. He wanted her to know that not only did he have a girlfriend, but he was also a playboy. People like her would definitely give up, but Lin Yi's goal didn't seem to be achieved. Not only that, but it also made Yu Bing feel relieved. He thought that Lin Yi was a rigid person, but now he realized that he wasn't. Since Lin Yi had two girlfriends, he didn't need his sister, although it seemed like his sister was at a disadvantage. But if Lin Yi was a rigid person, then he wouldn't be able to lose even if he wanted to. The reason why Yu Bing didn't think it was a big deal was because he was born in a hidden house. In hidden houses, it was normal to have 3 or 4 wives. Unless the wife was very strong and had a strong background, such as a marriage alliance, he would only have one wife. For example, the current head of House Xiao, Zhao Guangyin, only had one wife, Yu Xiaojin. But although Zhao Guangyin only had one wife in name, he had an illegitimate child outside. This was no secret. Yu Bing's father also found 2 concubines, but they didn't have any children. Yu Bing was very open about this. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it. There's already 2 of them? Then 1 more isn't a big deal. Ning should be at ease now. She still has a chance. Yu Bing smiled. Huh? Lin Yi heard Yu Bing's words and almost fainted. He realized that his words didn't make Yu Bing give up. Instead, it strengthened his confidence. What was the philosophy of the hidden house, Yu? What's wrong? Yu Bing looked at Lin Yi and didn't understand. It's nothing. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Other than me, what other allies does House Yu have? House Yu, we do. House Yu is related to the hidden house Xiao by marriage. But the one who came this time isn't the direct grandson of House Xiao. It's Xiao Qikun. He's with my cousin Yu Shan now. They're obviously forming an alliance. Yu Bing smiled bitterly. Every house has its problems. So other than you, I really don't know who else I can form an alliance with. Ha, it's nothing. Let's go out and take a look at the other houses then. Even if we can't form an alliance with them, we can at least form a good relationship with them. If we can't, then we'll let them know how strong we are and make sure they don't mess with us in the test. Lin Yi's goal was simple. If they couldn't be friends, then they shouldn't be enemies. But if there were people who were hostile, then Lin Yi didn't mind teaching them a lesson right now, in case they caused trouble during the test. This was what Zhao Qikun did back then, but after listening to Yu Bing's words, Lin Yi and Zhao Qikun couldn't be allies anymore. His instincts told him that House Xiao wouldn't make things difficult for him because of Zhao Qibing. Even if he did, it wouldn't matter. He could tell what he was planning from the way he tried to form an alliance with Yushan. Chapter 1476. But this was an internal problem between House Xiao and House Yu. It had nothing to do with Lin Yi. The day of the Ice Palace test was getting closer and closer. So there were more people coming to the inn today. When Lin Yi and Yu Bing left the inn, they saw a few more cars coming from afar, evidently heading towards the inn as well. I wonder which hidden house they are from. Lin Yi stood at the entrance of the inn and looked at the cars from afar. I'm not sure yet, but they might not all be from hidden houses. They might be from sects. Yu Bing shook his head. Yu Bing shook his head. I heard that there are people from the ancient sects participating this time. I wonder if it's true. House Yu's information network was quite fast, especially since the old head of House Yu hadn't gone into isolation yet. Yu Bing knew much more than others. At the very front of the group was a red Porsche Cayenne, evidently not from the same group as the cars behind it. This car was the fastest, and in a blink of an eye, it was not far from Lin Yi. With a beautiful drift, it stopped in the parking lot. I wonder whose brother this is. Is it because he has no experience? Or is it because of his flamboyant personality? People like him make enemies easily, Yu Bing said to Lin Yi as he watched the car. They were here to participate in the test, not to act cool. If they did, they might offend other people. After all, everyone's starting point was the same, and their strength was about the same as well. No one was weaker than the other. If he had the strength, then he could be cocky for a bit, but I wonder how strong he is. Lin Yi nodded. As the two spoke, the door of the red Cayenne opened. The one who got out of the car was a cool girl wearing a tight black leather jacket. A girl? Yu Bing paused. Those who came to participate in the test were usually men, and there were very few women. After all, most of the noble houses valued men more than women. They thought that only men could inherit the family business, and it was rare to see families like House Yu who valued a girl like Yu Ning. However, this test wasn't suitable for Yu Ning, so they sent him and Yu Shan here. Why was she here? When Lin Yi saw the cool girl, his eyes widened. No way. She came too? Could it be that assassins could also participate in this trial? Besides, didn't they have to be mystic class masters to participate? Thinking of this, Lin Yi looked at the cool girl with some doubts. Lin Yi could be sure that there were no fluctuations of true qi in the body of the cool girl. Could it be that she was a physical expert? Yang Chi-Chi didn't say anything after getting off the car, not even glancing at Lin Yi as she entered the inn. Lin Yi pondered for a moment, but in the end he did not greet her. From Lin Yi's point of view, this girl didn't even know much about martial arts. If he recruited her into his team, he wouldn't even be able to take care of her, let alone help him and Yu Bing. Therefore, it was best for Lin Yi not to provoke such a person. She looks like a pretty girl, just a little cold. Yu Bing looked at Yang Chi-Chi's back as she walked into the inn. Pretty girl is real, just a little troublesome. Lin Yi shrugged and didn't deny it. You know her? Lin Yi's answer surprised Yu Bing. I don't really know her, but I've met her before. She was injured both times, and after I saved her, she said that I saw her body and wanted to kill me. You still want to kill me? Lin Yi said, helplessly. Ha! Yu Bing laughed. No way? Then you have no choice but to accept her? It'll be troublesome if I accept her. Lin Yi shook his head. As they were talking, several other cars also arrived, but it was obvious that several cars seemed to be surrounding one car as they drove over. Lin Yi counted. There were 4 cars in total with different license plates, but the Hummer in the middle had a license plate from a city near Songsan. The cars stopped one after another. A few people got off from the other 3 cars and came to the side of the Hummer. They were almost fawning as they fought to open the doors of the Hummer. After a while, 2 legs came out of the Hummer. This is even more pretentious than before. Yu Bing was speechless, but this one has some strength. I know 2 of the people beside the Hummer, and they're from the hidden house. It's an expert from the hidden house of Zhuang to be able to make them bow. And scrape like this person shouldn't be from a hidden house or a normal sect. If I'm not wrong, this person should be from an ancient sect. Ancient sects are here too. Lin Yi was surprised, but isn't the Ice Palace an ancient sect too? Why are there people from other ancient sects here? As far as I know, ancient sects can join each other's tests as well, but they don't have to pay a high deposit like us. They're here for friendly reasons, just to train their juniors. But the last Ice Palace test didn't have this rule. It was set by another ancient sect. It seems like the Ice Palace is copying them this time. Yu Bing explained. I see. Lin Yi nodded. With the disciples from the ancient sects joining in, the fairness of the test will be clearly skewed. You can see it from their attitude towards the disciples from the ancient sections. Yeah, Yu Bing smiled bitterly. These ancient sect disciples might not be that strong, but they're famous, and some of the hidden house disciples like to suck up to them. This was the first time Nai Peo experienced what it felt like to be a boss. He didn't think that the ancient sect's name would be this popular, especially since he was an inner disciple of the everyday, an everyday sect. He was the target of all the hidden house disciples. Although the everyday and everyday sect didn't have a good reputation among the ancient sects and was called a demonic sect, their strength was tyrannical. Especially the old ancestor of the sect, he was in existence at the peak of the late phase of the heaven rank. Ordinary heaven rank powerhouses wouldn't pay attention to him. This was why Nai Peo, who was only a mystic mid-phase peak, had so many hidden house disciples fawning over him. Chapter 1477. He'd once lent a helping hand to Nai Peo in his family's darkest hour. Plus, Lin Yi was Nai Peo's enemy. Thinking back to how he'd been stepped on by Lin Yi back then, Nai Peo felt a wave of humiliation. He was the disciple of the everyday, an everyday sect, the one that the sect leader and elder valued the most, and yet he'd been stepped on by Lin Yi, a small fry from the common world. If he didn't get his revenge, he'd feel sorry for his sect. And so he trained hard day and night, daring to try things that others didn't dare to try. Pain that others couldn't, he could. Poisonous bees, bugs, snakes, weeds. Zhang Nai Peo was willing to do anything for the sake of training. The training methods of the demon sects were different from the other righteous sects. The other righteous sects used qi from heaven and earth for their own use. But the demon sects used all sorts of evil methods to convert poison and evil qi into their own strength. Naipeo's chrysanthemum arts, on the other hand, had already reached the first stage, becoming the fastest practitioner in the sect. There was actually a story behind this chrysanthemum art. It was said that it was passed down from the ancient Chiyu god, but this art was too evil and tyrannical, and was despised by the righteous sects of the Wulian world. They worked together to destroy it. Many years later, a demonic sect suddenly rose up in the martial arts world. It was the Everyday and Everyday sect. This sect used the Chrysanthemum Treasured Book as their sect's treasure. The sect's mental cultivation method was also similar to the Chrysanthemum Treasured Book. It used corpse energy, fresh blood, dead people, and poisonous substances to cultivate. A sect like this naturally would be attacked by other sects, but because of the speed and strength of the practitioners from the Everyday and Everyday sect, in the end they ended up in a draw. It was only a draw, and no one could do anything to the other. In this way, they would mind their own business and mind their own business. But for a demon sect like the Everyday and Everyday sect, many ancient sects would stay away from them. But there were exceptions like the Ice Palace. The Ice Palace was a powerful existence even among the ancient sections. The palace master of the Ice Palace was as powerful as the ancestor of the Everyday and Everyday sect. As for the people of the Ice Palace, they were as cold as their name suggested. They treated everyone and anything coldly. Over the years, the Ice Palace, he didn't have a good relationship with the other ancient sections. However, he didn't reject the disciples of the other ancient sects who came to participate in the trial. However, the Ice Palace had the right to be indifferent. Even so, the other ancient sects had to welcome the Ice Palace with a smile. Before Naipeo came to the test, his master had already told him that he wouldn't be able to deal with the others. They could pretend to be arrogant to show off the Everyday and Everyday sect's superior status, but they had to welcome the people from the Ice Palace with a smile, because the Ice Palace's strength was no weaker than the Everyday and Everyday sect. However, although the Everyday and Everyday sect had the Chrysanthemum Treasured Book, no one else cultivated it. The reason was that the Chrysanthemum Grimoire was too evil. If one didn't castrate oneself, one who wasn't resolute enough would be trapped by it and fall into chi deviation. Previously, there were a few disciples who had cultivated it, but all of them died from chi deviation. These disciples were the ones who the elders of the sect had thought to be the most talented, but none of them had succeeded. Only Naipeo didn't even think twice about castrating himself. He castrated himself without thinking. This was something that had never happened before. After all, which one of these disciples wasn't young? Which one of them wanted to become a eunuch? They all wanted to leave the mountain and enjoy the life of women. There was no way they'd do something as stupid as leave the Ice Palace. And so, even if the Chrysanthemum Treasured Book was very strong, it was praised by the elders of the sect as being as powerful as the legendary art of dragon mastery. But very few people practiced this powerful art. The Chrysanthemum Grimoire had a special characteristic, and that was that it could transform all kinds of evil and poisonous things into demonic energy in one's body. It belonged to the omnipotent mental cultivation method, and was not restricted by any cultivation method. It was unlike the other mental cultivation methods that the other people in the sect practiced, which could only use poisonous grass, poisonous insects seen to replenish yang, or blood-sucking, and so on. Naipeo, on the other hand, didn't have to do that. He used whatever he had, and even if others didn't, he could use it. This way, he'd have more resources, and his training speed would naturally be faster than others. Naipeo got off the car with everyone around him, putting on his sunglasses. Master Pao is so handsome. Truly a master of the young generation. A disciple from a hidden house said, "Of course, Master Pao is from the ancient sect. He's as lucky as the heavens." Another disciple from a hidden house said, "Humph, that girl doesn't give face to Master Pao. I think she's tired of living." The one speaking was a disciple from House Shuang. called Zhuang Niapeo. His name was quite similar to Naipeo's, and so he used this as an excuse to get close to Naipeo. The other disciples from the hidden houses all got to know Naipeo through him. Yeah, Master Pao, do you want us to capture that girl and send her to your room tonight? Another disciple from House Zhuang said, that girl doesn't give face to Master Pao. If we don't teach her a lesson, she won't know who Master Pao is. Master Pao, that girl's pretty. Play with her for a bit. It'll be a warm-up for the test. Another disciple from a small sect said, he was thinking that once Naipeo got bored of her, he'd have a taste of her. After all, he'd have Naipeo, an ancient sect disciple, to back him up. He wasn't afraid of anything. No need. I'm not interested in her. Naipeo waved his hand, nonchalantly. People like her, who only know how to act cool, will just teach her a lesson during the test. Naipeo was speaking the truth. He really wasn't interested in Chi-Chi. He was a eunuch. What interest could he possibly have in a girl? But this was a secret. He wouldn't just tell anyone. I see. The disciple who suggested said, a little disappointed. As they spoke, Lin Yi had a look of disbelief on his face. This was the second familiar face he'd run into after Chi-Chi. He didn't expect to run into Zhang Naipeo here. Since when did Naipeo become a practitioner? And he even became a cultivator of an ancient sect. Chapter 1478. This guy sure knows how to act. Even if the ancient sects are strong, there's no need to do this, right? Yu Bing frowned as he watched Naipeo's actions. Mystic mid-phase peak. Lin Yi was shocked. Naipeo, who used to be Piliang's follower, now had the same strength as him. Although the energy in Naipeo's body couldn't be considered pure qi, it was still very strong. Looking at it carefully, it felt familiar. Lin Yi seemed to have seen this kind of qi before, but it wasn't complete qi. This qi could increase one's strength, but it was different from normal practitioners. Just like the energy in his own body, it was different from pure qi. But Lin Yi was sure that the qi in Naipeo's body wasn't his own. It was a type of qi, not an all-purpose energy. As for which type it was, Lin Yi couldn't be sure. Mystic mid-phase peak? Yu Bing paused. This strength isn't much in the ancient sects, right? I thought he was mystic late-phase peak. Huh? But did you know? 2 months ago, he was still a normal person. Lin Yi smiled bitterly, finding it hard to believe. What? 2 months ago, he was still a normal person? Yu Bing's eyes were wide open. How is that possible? He's my classmate. Do you think it's possible? Lin Yi was helpless as well. Ancient sects are that strong? How can they allow a normal person to increase their strength so quickly? Ancient sects. It doesn't mean that they are sects that have existed since the ancient times, but the mental cultivation methods they cultivate are mostly passed down from the ancient times. These inner force mental cultivation methods are very powerful, much more powerful than the mental cultivation methods that we, the hidden aristocratic families, and the aristocratic families cultivate. So it's not impossible. Yu Bing explained, it's just that we don't know about it. To be honest, I'm shocked as well, but remembering that he's from an ancient sect, it makes sense. At that moment, Naipeo and the others were already walking towards the entrance of the inn. Naipeo, on the other hand, saw Lin Yi and Yu Bing at the side of the entrance. At that moment, Naipeo stopped, his eyes filled with shock as he stared at Lin Yi's face. Naturally, he ignored Yu Bing, who was beside him. Who was Yu Bing and what did he do? To Naipeo, that wasn't important. The important thing was, why was Lin Yi here? Yes, Liang Bro had said that Lin Yi was already a mystic when he visited him last time, so it was normal for him to join the Ice Palace test. As for which house or sect he belonged to, that was something Naipeo didn't need to know. He only needed to know that he was from the everyday, an everyday sect, one of the top sect in the ancient sects. It didn't matter if Lin Yi was from a hidden house or a small sect. None of that mattered. Their statuses were no longer equal. Even if he killed Lin Yi in front of everyone here, No one would dare speak up for him. No one would dare stand up for him. Going against him was the same as going against the entire an everyday sect. Lin Yi's eyes met with Naipeo's. Their eyes met. There were no sparks. In Naipeo's heart he hated Lin Yi, but with his current status, he had enough power to take care of Lin Yi. There was no need for him to get angry. His heart was filled with disdain. Lin Yi, on the other hand, he was shocked at how fast Naipeo leveled up. But as far as Lin Yi was concerned, he was still the same Naipeo that he could step on whenever he wanted. A mystic mid-phase peak, the same as him. It sounded like they were on par. But Lin Yi had a trump card that could even take on an Earth class. Why would he be afraid of someone on the same level as him? So in Lin Yi's heart, there wasn't even disdain, only indifference. The two didn't say anything and just stared at each other. The people around Naipeo were confused by his actions. Master Pao, what's wrong? I saw an old acquaintance. I'll go greet him. Naipeo said faintly, although he could have anyone around him help him against Lin Yi. He didn't do that. How could he show off his power like that? One day, he would step on Lin Yi with his own hands. This was his promise to Pinliang, and he had to keep it. Oh, Zhuang Niapeo paused. He could tell that Naipeo's words were a little weird, but he didn't know what Naipeo meant. He could only follow behind Naipeo towards Lin Yi, not daring to make a decision himself. Isn't this Lin Yi? Boss Lin? What are you doing here instead of showing off in school? Naipeo looked at Lin Yi and said mockingly, this isn't a place you should be. It's very dangerous, and you could die at any moment. Mystic mid-phase peak? Sounds strong. Lin Yi said as he looked at Naipeo. Naipeo was taken aback by the fact that Lin Yi was able to point out his strength. From Lin Yi's tone, it seemed like he didn't care. Could it be that he was an even stronger master? With that thought, Naipeo raised his guard. But that wasn't right. This Ice Palace test had a clear strength limitation. One had to be a mystic, which meant that even if you were Golden Class Late Phase Peak, you couldn't participate even if you were about to break through. At the same time, even if you just broke through to Earth Class a minute ago, you couldn't participate either. So Lin Yi was definitely a mystic as well. As for what level, Naipeo didn't care because he had a trump card. As long as the opponent wasn't beyond mystic, he had confidence that he could win. Even if it was an Earth Class early phase, he would be able to put up a fight. He might get injured, but it was more than enough to stay alive. This was also why Naipeo was valued by the elders of the sect. It had been many years since there was a disciple as hard-working and brave as Naipeo in the sect. Strong or not, you'll know once you try. Naipeo smiled coldly. But too bad that Liang Bro isn't here. He'd be able to see how I kill you. It'd be very satisfying. You haven't forgotten about Pinliang's revenge, have you? Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. No matter how strong you are, you're still Pinliang's dog. Dog or follower. It doesn't matter, Lin. I'll let you live today, and I'll kill you the next time I see Liang Bro. You may be spared from death today, but you can't escape punishment. Naipeo suddenly sent a palm towards Lin Yi. Chapter 1479. Lin Yi didn't think that Naipeo would make the first move here, but Lin Yi had no reason to dodge. Since that was the case, he might as well teach Naipeo a lesson. Killing Naipeo, on the other hand, was something Lin Yi didn't think about, at least not here. Lin Yi's goal here was to find the fruit for Xiao Xiao, and the Ice Palace's trial was probably the only way for him to get it. He didn't want to cause any problems before the trial started, in case the Ice Palace used him killing Zhang Naipeo as an excuse to reject him from the trial. It wouldn't be worth it if the Ice Palace used him killing Zhang Naipeo as an excuse. The current Lin Yi was no match for the Ice Palace at all. So, even if he wanted to kill Naipeo, it would be during the test, not now. Seeing Naipeo's palm coming at him, Lin Yi didn't dodge at all. He quickly channeled the art of dragon mastery and met Naipeo's palm head-on. The two palms collided, and a crisp pung sound was heard. the Zhuang brothers beside Naipeo, as well as the other disciples of the hidden houses, all cheered excitedly when they saw Naipeo's attack. Master Pao is invincible. Master Pao is invincible. Unparalleled. Master Pao rules the world, unifying the world. The cheers came one after another. And on Lin Yi's side, Yu Bing was frowning, worried for Lin Yi. After all, Naipeo's title as an ancient sect worried Yu Bing. The ancient sects were even stronger than the hidden houses. Even if House Yu had 2 sky-class masters, they wouldn't dare say they were on par with the ancient sections. Even the weakest ancient sects had sky-class late-phase peak masters in their ranks. It wasn't something the hidden house you could compare with. Hearing the cheers from Naipeo's followers, Yu Bing was even more worried. After all, these people might know Naipeo's strength. Otherwise, they wouldn't have such high hopes for him. This wasn't cheering at all. It was blind flattery. Qi flowed through Lin Yi's palms towards Naipeo, but Lin Yi didn't feel Naipeo's qi retaliate at all. Naipeo didn't get blown away like the others, instead looking at her with a smile on his face. What was going on? Lin Yi vaguely felt that something was wrong. Why did his palm feel like it was hitting cotton? There was no effect at all when he used his true qi? Could it be that this Zhang Naipeo knew some sort of defensive arts? Thinking of this, Lin Yi hurriedly increased the strength of his true qi. In order to test Naipeo's strength, as well as not wanting to kill him in one hit, Lin Yi only used around 50% of his true qi. But now Lin Yi increased his true qi to 100%. Ha ha! Naipeo wasn't affected at all, but started laughing instead. Lin Yi's heart sank. Strange. The kung fu of the ancient sects was indeed powerful. The people from the aristocratic families and the hidden aristocratic families. They weren't on the same level at all. Just one Zhang Naipeo was already this strong, and it made Lin Yi feel like he couldn't do anything about it. Lin Yi didn't want to keep fighting, and decided to dodge first before looking for an opening. After making up his mind, Lin Yi quickly stopped his true qi and stopped his arts. He wanted to pull his palm away from Naipeo, but the next moment, something strange happened. To Lin Yi's shock, his palm seemed to have been sucked into Naipeo's palm. He couldn't pull it away, no matter how hard he tried. And this wasn't the worst. What shocked Lin Yi even more was yet to come. He'd stopped channeling the art of dragon mastery, but the energy in his body was still flowing through his palms into Naipeo's body. The art of dragon mastery, on the other hand, was operating on its own. What kind of demonic practitioner's arts is this? Lin Yi looked at Naipeo, shocked. Lin Yi felt like he couldn't control this feeling. Just like that time when he transferred his true qi into Xiao Xiao, he was the one who initiated the art of dragon mastery, but then it was forced to circulate on its own, and the true qi in his body was leaking out. Ha 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 ha! This is an evil arts called the chrysanthemum art of wasp absorption. What do you think? You've never heard of it, have you? Naipeo looked at the shocked look on Lin Yi's face and started laughing heartily. Just as he expected, all of Lin Yi's strength was absorbed by him. And this was Naipeo's trump card. Naipeo's chrysanthemum art was an all-purpose energy conversion art, able to convert all the energy in the outside world into his own demonic qi for his own use. Poisonous bees, poisonous bugs, poisonous water, all sorts of powerful poisons could be used, and the true qi that other people worked so hard to cultivate could be used by him as well. This was also the evil part of this true qi. As long as the opponent was Naipeo's level or lower, they could use it. And now, Naipeo was a mystic, which meant that as long as the opponent was a golden or mystic spiritual practitioner, he could use the chrysanthemum art of wasp absorption on them. It didn't matter if they were mystic early phase or late phase peak. As long as they weren't earth class, he could kill them all. Even if it was an earth class early phase, Zhang Naipeo could risk getting injured just to absorb some of the qi from the opponent. This was what made him so powerful, and the disciples of the hidden houses and sects who followed him were all fawning over him after seeing his strength. Otherwise, Even if it was an ancient sect, it would be normal for them to befriend them, but there was no need for them to fawn over him like this. On the road, a hidden house practitioner who thought he was a mystic late phase peak blocked Naipeo's path, and so Naipeo used him as a practice target without hesitation. Naipeo knew how powerful this chrysanthemum art of wasp absorption was, but this was a sect, after all, and he couldn't use a fellow disciple as a practice target. And this unlucky mystic late phase peak from a hidden house just happened to be the one who got sucked dry, losing all of his strength. Naturally, there weren't many people watching the fight between Naipeo and this mystic late phase peak, and they saw how vicious Naipeo was. Chapter 1480. And because of that, Zhang Naipeo's name started to spread, and the disciples of the other hidden houses and sects all came to get close to him. One reason was because of the halo of an ancient sect, and the other was that Naipeo himself was very strong. That was why these people were doing this. The chrysanthemum arts that Naipeo was talking about was something that Lin Yi had never heard of before. He didn't know what it was, but it was true that Naipeo could absorb his qi. Even if Lin Yi stopped his arts, it wouldn't help. The qi was still flowing out of his body. No wonder your strength grew so fast. Lin Yi's eyes flashed coldly. Naipeo was too scary. Using such a dominating arts, this put a lot of pressure on Lin Yi. How should he deal with him? Lin Yi realized that he couldn't do anything to Naipeo at this point. He couldn't move his hand. And the qi in his body was draining rapidly as well. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before all his qi would go to Naipeo's side. And he'd become a normal person with no strength at all. Lin Yi had lost his strength many times before, and he wasn't afraid of it. As long as his meridians weren't broken, he had the jade space as his golden finger, and it would only take a night for him to recover his strength. But the problem was, wouldn't it be the same if he fought Naipeo again after he recovered? He'd be giving his qi to Naipeo for nothing. How's that? Shocked, right? Jealous? Hateful? It's no use. I'm from an ancient sect, and you're just a normal practitioner. Naipeo said happily as he looked at Lin Yi's face. My starting point is higher than yours, and my practitioner's arts are better than yours as well. My practitioner's arts are much better than yours too. Lin Yi, I sucked dry a mystic late phase peak's qi on the road, and I'm already showing signs of breaking through. Maybe I'll be able to break through after I suck dry your strength. Ha ha ha. I didn't think that I would be able to become a mystic late phase master even before the trial. Lin Yi didn't say anything as he looked at Naipeo's smug face. There was no point in saying anything at this point. Lin Yi hadn't found a way to deal with him yet. In other words, he hadn't found Naipeo's weakness yet, so there was no point in saying anything. However, Lin Yi was unwilling. It hadn't been long and he'd already lost half of his qi. If this continued, he'd really be sucked dry by Naipeo. Lin Yi hesitated for a moment. He raised his leg and kicked at Naipeo's crotch. Lin Yi's plan was to catch Naipeo off guard. And when he was focused on absorbing his qi, he'd give him a kick that would heavily injure him and interrupt the chrysanthemum arts. Lin Yi would then use this opportunity to retract his palm. Bang! Lin Yi's leg hit Naipeo's crotch. But it didn't feel like he'd kicked anything. It didn't feel like he'd expected. You still dare to ambush me? Naipeo didn't think that Lin Yi would dare ambush him in a situation like this, but he didn't care. He laughed loudly. Perfect. Thank you. One palm is too slow. I'll use your leg then. As soon as he finished his words, Lin Yi realized, to his shock, that he couldn't move his foot away from Naipeo's crotch. The qi in his body was being transferred to Naipeo from his foot. Your other body parts can absorb qi as well. Lin Yi paused. You know, but it's too late. Naipeo said. So, ambushing me is useless. Ha 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 ha, Lin Yi. You can only watch as you become a cripple. There's no other choice. How is it Isn't it painful? You're about to become a normal person. And all the chi you've worked so hard for will be sucked away by me, turning into the demon chi in my body for my use. Of course, Naipeo didn't know that Lin Yi would be able to recover. Normal people wouldn't be able to recover in a short period of time. They'd basically become a cripple. How much effort would it take to start from scratch? How many treasures and herbs would he need? Demon chi? You're not training chi? Lin Yi realized after hearing the words, it really wasn't chi in Naipeo's body. No wonder Lin Yi felt that he was different from other people. It's also a type of chi, and the strength is the same as chi as well. It's just that the element is different. Naipeo wasn't impatient at all, as he explained it to Lin Yi. As far as he was concerned, Lin Yi was about to become a cripple, so he might as well let him know before he died. I see. Lin Yi nodded. You're very strong. This time, I admit defeat. Lin Yi had no choice but to admit defeat. He didn't want to, but it was the truth, and Lin Yi couldn't deny it. After all, Lin Yi still hadn't found any weaknesses in Naipeo. Lin Yi had thought that since Naipeo's palm could absorb chi, he'd try to avoid contact with it after he recovered and attack other parts of his body instead. But that plan was ruined after Lin Yi's kick. Ha! This time? You think there's a next time? Next time, it'll be your death day. Naipeo laughed as the hidden house disciples around Naipeo cheered. Yubing, on the other hand, was panicking. He'd wanted to join forces with Lin Yi against Naipeo, but after hearing the conversation between Naipeo and Lin Yi, he hesitated. Naipeo was a monster, and even if Yubing attacked, it wouldn't be of much use. He could absorb other people's chi, and even if he went up, he wouldn't be able to escape the fate of being absorbed. So Yubing didn't dare attack rashly. Plus, Lin Yi had secretly hinted at him with his eyes, telling him not to act rashly. But if it really was as Naipeo said, and Lin Yi was crippled and turned into a normal person, then Lin Yi wouldn't be able to participate in this test anymore. What would happen to his friends then? Wouldn't it be impossible for them to get the fruit? With that thought, Yubing made up his mind. If Lin Yi really was crippled and turned into a normal person, then he'd help Lin Yi find the fruit and give it to Lin Yi. Chapter 1481. Yes, Zhuang Niapeo and the other disciples from the hidden houses and sects didn't care about Lin Yi anymore. They all ran to Zhang Naipeo's side and surrounded him, protecting him. Zhang Naipeo sat on the ground, and a strong energy whirlpool formed around him. Circling above his head, the demonic energy in his body moved the energy around him and gathered it together. It seemed like he was about to break through. As for Lin Yi, the disciples from the hidden houses and sects, as well as Zhang Naipeo, didn't even look at him. In their eyes, Lin Yi was the same as that mystic late-phase peak master who was showing off on the road. A cripple. They didn't even want to think about this cripple, let alone look at him. Lin Yi's chi was sucked dry, and he fell to the ground. Right now, Lin Yi was even weaker than a normal person. After all, normal people still had energy in their body, but Lin Yi had none at all. How are you? Yubing looked at Zhang Naipeo and the others not far away, and asked Lin Yi anxiously. It's nothing. Help me back to my room. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile bitterly as he looked at Naipeo. This was the best time to deal with Zhang Naipeo. He was in the middle of breaking through, and his defense was the weakest. If he were to attack him now, he would be heavily injured. However, his followers were guarding him from the side, giving Lin Yi no chance at all. If Lin Yi was at his peak, he could use an energy bomb to kill all of them and then deal with Zhang Naipeo. But now, Lin Yi had no energy in his body at all. Where would he go to get an energy bomb? And Yubing wasn't a match for a group of mystic class masters. Letting him go would be suicide, so Lin Yi could only return to his room, helplessly, and think of a plan after recovering his strength. We're teammates, but I can't take revenge for you, Yubing said with a little sadness and guilt as he looked at Lin Yi. He was indignant because he was helpless. He had no way to avenge Lin Yi. He felt guilty because, on one hand, Lin Yi was his former teammate, friend, and also his current teammate. On the other hand, it was because of Xiao Ning. If Xiao Ning knew about this, if he became a normal person and lost his strength, then the gap between him and Ning and the hidden house would only get bigger and bigger. His father, Yu Xiaochen, would never allow Ning to marry a normal person. Even his grandpa wouldn't agree to it, let alone his father. It's nothing. Revenge must be taken. I'll do it myself. Linny smiled and said, "You don't need to have any psychological burden, but you look like this. How can you take revenge?" Yu Bing smiled bitterly. "Forget it. I'll help you back first." Under the disregard, Yu Bing helped Lin Yi to the entrance of the inn. This scene was witnessed by the owner of the inn, but he didn't stop them. He didn't say anything. He was from the Ice Palace as well, but the test hadn't started yet. The Ice Palace didn't need to be responsible for the safety of the participants, so he didn't need to interfere. Yu Bing helped Lin Yi back to his room and said hurriedly, "What do I do? What should I do now? Do you need any treasures? Tell me, I have a certain status in House Yu. Plus Xiaoning, as long as House Yu has what you want, I can get it for you." "No need." Lin Yi smiled gratefully. "Why do you need to go through so much trouble? You can go back. I'll rest for a bit." Then, "All right, don't worry too much. You don't have your strength anymore. We can train again. With me and Xiao Ning supporting you secretly, you'll have a lot of treasures to make." Yu Bing consoled. He thought that Lin Yi was just comforting him after all. He had lost all his strength, and to recover it would be as hard as reaching the heavens. This was the strength he had accumulated since he was young. It wasn't something that could be achieved in a day. But Lin Yi wasn't in a good mood right now, so he didn't want to talk too much. He needed some peace and quiet. "Thank you." Lin Yi nodded to Yu Bing with a smile. After Yu Bing left, Lin Yi quickly entered the Jade Space and started channeling the art of dragon mastery. The energy in the Jade Space surged into Lin Yi's body like crazy. Lin Yi was already used to this, as long as his meridians weren't damaged. Recovering his strength and energy was only a matter of time in Yu Bing's room. Yu Bing was holding the satellite phone in his hand with a bitter face. He didn't know if he should tell his sister about Lin Yi's injury, but if he didn't tell her, then he wouldn't be able to continue with his plan. He had to work with his sister. Otherwise, with his position in House Yu, he wouldn't be able to get that many treasures. With that thought, Yu Bing picked up the phone and called his sister's number. He didn't call the house phone, but the cell phone, afraid that someone would hear the call. "Hello, Big Brother?" Yuning picked up her phone strangely. When her brother participated in the trial, he would usually call home to report that he was safe and sound. Finally, he would look for her to say a few words. Why did he directly call her today? According to his calculations, today should be the day her brother arrived at Snowtown. Shouldn't he call home to report that he was safe? In fact, Yu Bing did want to call home to report that he was safe, but he met Lin Yi first, so he didn't have the time to do so. Now that something like this happened to Lin Yi, how could Yu Bing be in the mood to report that he was safe? He had to call his sister quickly to discuss a plan. If he could get his hands on some of the house's soul-gathering pills, that would be the best. The so-called soul-gathering pill was similar to the chi-gathering pill, but it was much less effective. The soul-gathering pill was a spiritual medicine for those below the mystic class to quickly increase their strength, but it wasn't that useful once they reached the mystic class. Back then, Yu Bing had to use a lot of soul-gathering pills to break through to the mystic class, but although it was a lower level than the chi-gathering pill, it was still expensive to make. Two of the family's medicine masters spent a lot of effort to make it. To be continued, high-speed text. Chapter 1482. In addition, the success rate was extremely low. The reason why it was called a pill was because these two people were only medicine masters, not alchemists. They could only mix herbs into pills, but they couldn't make them into pills. It's me. Yu Bing smiled bitterly. Originally, he was going to tell Yu Ning the good news because he saw Lin Yi today. He believed that Yu Ning would be very happy after hearing the news, but now that the good news had turned into bad news, it was hard for him to explain it to his sister. After all, Lin Yi was injured in front of him, but he couldn't do anything. What's wrong, big brother? From your voice, you don't sound too happy? Yu Ning asked curiously. There's bad news. Sis, after I finish, you have to hold on. Yu Bing hesitated. What news? Why are you saying it's so scary? Big brother, what happened? After Yu Ning heard it, her heart was nervous for no reason. Did you encounter any trouble? It's not me. Sis, do you know who I met in the inn in Snowtown? Yu Bing smiled bitterly. Who? Yu Ning paused and asked. Lin Yi. Yu Bing said. What? Did you see him? Yu Ning was surprised and happy. You met him? He also went to participate in the test. No, you told me before there was bad news. Is it about him? Yu Ning's heart subconsciously trembled. Could it be that something really happened to him? Yes. Yu Bing had called to tell Yu Ning the truth. So instead of stuttering, he might as well tell her the truth. And so he paused for a moment. After organizing his words, he told the whole story in detail to Yu Ning. What? He lost all his strength. The opponent is a disciple of an ancient sect. Yu Ning was shocked after listening. She didn't blame her brother because as a member of the Hidden House Yu, she knew what it meant to be an ancient sect. She also knew that if the opponent was as strong as her brother said, then even if her brother took action, it would be useless. In this situation, he chose to endure it for now. It was right. After all, this wasn't the time to be impulsive. Yes, I'm really sorry, little sister. I can't do anything. Yu Bing smiled bitterly. I carry father's hope, as well as House Yu's hope. I can't lose all my strength. I understand, but Yu Ning shook her head. She understood what her brother was thinking, and naturally wouldn't say anything about it. When I heard that he was already a mystic mid-phase peak, I was very happy, but in the blink of an eye, he lost all his strength. This is also the reason why I called you. I wanted to hide it from you, not letting you know. I didn't want you to be sad. Yu Bing said, I need your help. If I want Lin Yi to recover his strength, I need a large amount of cultivation elixirs, such as spirit gathering pills. House you can provide it, but the resources I can get are limited. You'll have to do the rest. But I'm not a cultivator. I've never asked for things like elixirs. Yu Ning paused. She felt that what Yu Bing said was feasible. If she could help Lin Yi recover his strength, she was willing to do anything. She would never forget what had happened on that Valentine's Day night. Her heart was tied to Lin Yi. However, Yu Ning wasn't an impulsive person. She knew her own situation. If she went to her house and asked for elixirs, the house would definitely be suspicious. Then the family would definitely be suspicious, so he had to be skillful. So we need to think of a way. But this happened so suddenly, I don't have any good ideas yet. Yu Bing smiled bitterly. I'm just telling you first, you should think about it too. All right, I'll think about it later. Yu Ning didn't dare to neglect Lin Yi's situation. She quickly nodded. All right, that's all for now. Don't let others know. I'll call home now to tell them that I'm safe. Yu Bing sighed. Although he felt bad, he still had to call home to tell them that he was safe. And, brother, Yu Ning hesitated. What's wrong? Is there anything else? Yu Bing was about to hang up when he heard Yu Ning calling him. Can I talk to him? Yu Ning mustered up her courage and asked, Tomorrow, I'll try to talk to him. Right now he's resting in his room. I think he doesn't want others to know about this. So, let's not disturb him. Yu Bing said, That's good too. Yu Ning nodded. She understood Lin Yi's current mood. No matter who it was, they would be unhappy if they lost their strength. But, brother, help me tell him that no matter what, I will help him. Please believe me. I can do it. even if I can't do it now, when I will definitely be able to help him, tell him not to give up on himself. Yu Ning was so excited that she almost said that she could inherit the cultivation from the ancient ruins. However, this was a top secret in House Yu. Other than Yu Ning, only the old ancestor, and Yu Shaochen knew about it. Even Yu Yi didn't know much about it. I understand. Yu Bing didn't ask anymore. He knew that his sister had a big secret, a secret that could revitalize House Yu. But since his father didn't want him to know, he didn't need to ask. That would only make things difficult for his sister. After all, this wasn't as simple as a brother-sister relationship. It was a violation of House Yu's rules. Yu Bing knew the severity of this. After calling his family to let them know that he was safe, Yu Bing didn't have the mood to talk to other people anymore. He laid on his bed and went to bed early. He couldn't sleep, and his mind was a mess, but he didn't want to do anything else. Zhao Qikun, Zhao Qizhou, and Yushan had just finished eating and were walking back to the inn. It was already 3 a.m, and they were clearly drinking to their heart's content. They were all very happy. However, the 3 of them were half a step slower. In front of them, there was another person, an ally, that they had just recruited. But this ally's identity was definitely not simple. Otherwise, even Yushan, who came from the head of the hidden houses, wouldn't be so respectful. Nitian Bro, with you joining us, our team will definitely get a heaven-defying result in this test. Zhao Qikun was very excited. He actually had a connection with an ancient noble house. The benefits of this was self-explanatory. To be continued, % high-speed text. Chapter 1483. One had to know that the ancient noble houses and ancient sects had the same status. They were 1 level higher than the hidden houses and normal sects. And this young man in front of him was from the ancient noble house Feng Nitian. His name was domineering, but he had the right to be domineering. With him in the team, Qikun believed that he and Yushan would be able to pass the Ice Palace test without a hitch. You can't say that there are other ancient sects and ancient noble houses participating in the test. I'm not the only one. Nitian might have said that, but he didn't look humble at all. It was obvious that he had accepted Yushan's words, but we're all at the same level as the ancients. We'll give each other some face. That's right, that's right. Not to be outdone, Yushan said, Big Bro Nitian's face is definitely bigger than ours. To have Big Bro Nitian join our team is the honor of 3 lifetimes. This time, if anyone doesn't like it, Nitian Bro will kill them with his arts. Qikun couldn't help but admire the words arts, arts that defied the heavens. This was something that defied the heavens. Before, Feng Nitian had only shown a little of his skills, and it was enough to make Qikun, Qizhou, and Yushan submit to him. Even if Nitian was from the ancient Feng house, Qikun, and the others wouldn't need to be so polite to him. They weren't on the same level, and it was fine to be respectful, but there was no need to be too polite. Nitian was just a disciple here to participate in the test. He wouldn't be able to do anything for their families, so they were completely shocked by his performance. The level of the ancient sects and ancient aristocratic families was indeed very powerful. Hidden noble houses, they weren't even on the same level. Arts that defied the heavens were indeed very strong. Feng Nitian's arts were very strange. He could create a small field around him, and the people in this field wouldn't be able to move at all. Although the area was small and the time limit was very short, Feng Nitian couldn't move at all. Nitian was at the 3rd level, and he could only restrict people's movements for around 3 minutes, and the effective range was only around 3 meters, but that was more than enough. Think about it. Even a supermaster wouldn't be able to move. Being locked in place and unable to move, wasn't that equivalent to sitting on the ground and waiting for death? This meant that Feng Nitian's arts were extremely powerful. Of course, in the Feng clan, besides the Feng clan's ancestor, Only he had successfully cultivated this miraculous mental cultivation method. There were many requirements for cultivating this mental cultivation method. It was not something that ordinary people could achieve. As a result, Fong Nitian was highly regarded in the family. Other than training, he also wanted to make a name for himself. If he passed the test, his name would be even more famous in the house. In order to make preparations for him to smoothly become the young patriarch, after Nitian became the young master, the position of the head of the house would naturally fall into his father's hands. His uncle, who had the advantage now, would be kicked out of the competition. Of course, even if Fong Nitian didn't participate in this test, he would still be able to participate because of the Fong old ancestors' love for him. With his own cultivation, he could still become the head of the house, but he wouldn't have any outstanding achievements. The process would be slow, and Fong Nitian didn't want to wait any longer. The more he looked at his uncle and his honest brother, the more he didn't like them. Therefore, as long as he could successfully pass this trial and become one of the top 3, he would be able to win some heavenly treasures for his family. Although the ancient Fong family didn't lack heavenly treasures, what he wanted was the honor, not the items. As for taking in a few followers to run errands for him, Fong Nitian naturally didn't mind sharing some of the merits with them. As far as Fong Nitian was concerned, as long as he used his heaven-defying arts on the test field, wouldn't he be able to do whatever he wanted? He would be able to hurt them if he wanted to. He would be able to steal their points if he wanted to. Getting the first place in the test was as easy as flipping his hand. Every time I use the heaven-defying arts, it consumes a large amount of qi. I can't use it as I please. I can only use it 3 to 5 times. Fong Nitian waved his hand. So, don't just sit around and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. In fact, with his current strength, he could only use it 3 times at most. 5 times was basically impossible, but Fong Nitian was just bragging. That's more than enough. We'll see who gets the most points then, and we'll use it if we can't win. Nitian bro, please go out and use your heaven-defying arts against him. Yushan said, that works too. It's also a form of training for you guys. Otherwise, I'll just attack, and there'll be no point in the test anymore. Fong Nitian said, acting cool. Of course, of course. Chikuan and Yushan nodded. The 4 returned to the inn and saw 6 people sitting in front of the door. 5 of them were surrounding one person, as if they were meditating. What are they doing? Fong Nitian frowned and pointed at Zhang Naipeo. I don't know. Nitian bro, I'll go ask. Yushan asked. All right, go ahead and ask. Fong Nitian nodded. The qi here is thicker than other places, but it's not like they're training out in the open. Isn't it the same in the inn? Oi, you guys, what are you doing? With Fong Nitian's support, Yushan's arrogance was revealed, and he wasn't as restrained as before. Zhuang Nipao and the others were focused on guarding when someone walked over and shouted, and they jumped up in fright. Although they were furious, they didn't want to disturb Master Pao's training, so they didn't say anything. Fuck, I'm talking to you guys. Are you deaf? Can't you hear me? Yushan saw that these people were ignoring him and was pissed. Open your dog eyes. And look, this is Nitian bro from the ancient noble house Fong. Why aren't you guys bowing to him? Seeing how arrogant this person was, Zhuang Nipao and Zhuang Niaoqiang couldn't sit still anymore. They wanted to stand up and teach this guy a lesson, but before they could stand up, they heard what he said. What? Someone from the ancient Fong family? Zhuang Nipao was about to stand up and beat him up, but he quickly stood up and explained, I'm sorry. The disciple of the ancient sect every day, an everyday sect, Master Pao, is training here, and we're here to guard him. Although they had Zhang Naipeo's support, they couldn't afford to offend an ancient noble house. To be continued, percent high-speed text. Chapter 1484. School Beauty's Personal Expert 1482. School Beauty's Personal Expert Chapter 1482, Late Phase Mystic Class Late Phase. If it was a disciple from a normal hidden family, they would not have given a damn about it. However, an ancient family was different. They were as powerful as an ancient sect. High-quality text first, all above. They couldn't be disrespected. What? There's someone from an ancient sect training here? Fong Nitian was taken aback as well. He didn't know that the person in the middle was from an ancient sect, but now that he knew, naturally he wouldn't disturb him anymore. His purpose for coming out this time was to get on the good side of the disciples from other ancient sects and ancient houses, so that he could compete for the position of the head of his house in the future. So, after Fong Nitian heard that there was someone from an ancient sect training here, he quickly said, "Then I'm sorry for disturbing you. When this brother is done with his training, please tell him that Fong Nitian of the ancient house Fong will come to him personally to apologize." "No problem, Nitian bro." Zhuang Niapeo quickly nodded. Although this person said that he would come and apologize, it was just polite words. Zhuang Niapeo still knew how to differentiate between good and bad. What's going on? Why is he training here? Fong Nitian was a bit weird. An ancient sect shouldn't lack places to train. Why would he suddenly train in front of an inn in the middle of the night? Zhuang Niapeo didn't dare to hide anything and told him everything that happened. And when Lin Yi's name was mentioned, Zhao Qikuan naturally heard it as Ling Yi. The two names were very similar, so he thought that Zhuang Niapeo couldn't pronounce the words properly. What? Ling Yi is crippled? Zhao Qikuan froze, thinking that it was a waste to try and recruit him. If he knew that he had an ancient sect as his enemy, he wouldn't have wasted his effort. However, when Yushan heard the news, high-quality text first, all in %, this time, his big brother was really happy. The ally he just recruited was crippled. Haha, he must be very happy, right? Yu Bing, let's see how you're going to compete with me this time. I have Fong Nitian of the ancient house Fong as my support. What do you have? Your only ally is crippled. Just wait to be eliminated this time. 5 years later, when I return from my studies, the future head of house you will be me. You're nothing in front of me. I see. Nitian nodded. He didn't show it on the surface, but he was incomparably shocked in his heart. He originally thought that his mental cultivation method was heaven-defying enough, but he didn't expect that the person in front of him was even more heaven-defying than him, to actually be able to absorb the true chi of others. This was simply too terrifying, right? Of course, Naipeo was very strong in the eyes of Qikuan and the others as well. Fong Nitian's kung fu was just as strong, and both of them were from the ancient world. They couldn't please both of them at the same time. And now that they had a good relationship with Fong Nitian, Zhang Naipeo couldn't be fawning on him anymore. Then I won't disturb Brother Naipeo's training any longer, and Tian will take his leave. Nitian said politely and left with Qikuan and Yushan heading towards the inn 5 o'clock in the morning. Suddenly, the heaven and earth spiritual chi in the air above the inn became denser and denser. Any experienced cultivator would know that this was a sign that someone was about to break through. He couldn't sense it from far away, but he could still clearly sense it if it was close by. I'm about to break through. Everyone stay alert. Zhuang Niapeo yelled to the others who were protecting Naipeo. Yes. Everyone quickly answered and prepared for battle. Inside the inn, in Nitian's room, Qikuan and Yushan were talking to him when Nitian suddenly stopped and walked to the window. The one down there, is he about to break through? After Nitian finished his sentence, Nitian's eyes widened. Only then did Qikuan and Yushan feel that the energy around them had thickened. They didn't notice it before, but they were disciples of a hidden noble house, and they were weaker than Nitian, who came from an ancient noble house. They weren't as sensitive as him. Boom! Nitian's words had just landed when the energy of heaven and earth gathered together in the square below the inn before exploding and dispersing rapidly. Mystic late phase. He actually broke through to mystic late phase. What an overbearing art. Nitian sighed. Yeah, but Brother Nitian, you're not bad yourself. High quality text first, all in percent. Mystic late phase. That's just the same level as me. It's nothing. Nitian waved his hand. Let's continue our conversation. What else do you guys want to know about the ancient noble houses? Nitian had been answering Chikuan and Yushan's questions, teaching them about the ancient sects and ancient noble houses. Of course, what Nitian said wasn't any secret. It was something everyone in the ancient world knew, but the disciples of the hidden noble houses didn't know much about it. So, Nitian didn't mind showing off in front of them to raise his status. However, after Zhang Naipeo broke through, the owner of the inn squinted his eyes and looked outside the inn. He raised his head and looked upstairs, a flash of surprise in his eyes as he mumbled to himself, "Someone broke through upstairs? Could it be that person? It seems like this test is full of talents." With that, the owner's eyes returned to their previous calmness, and he didn't say anything else. Full. Linny let out a breath of turbid air, a smile on his face. "I finally broke through, Zhang Naipeo. I really have to thank you. You've broken through too, but without you, I wouldn't have the chance to break through." In this period of time, Lin Yi had been showing signs of breaking through to mystic late phase, but he lacked a chance, and with this chance today, Lin Yi broke through. This was an unexpected reward for Lin Yi. Lin Yi stretched lazily, feeling an indescribable sense of satisfaction. Leveling up naturally was much more comfortable than using compressed energy to break through, at least his clothes weren't destroyed. And it wasn't that painful when he broke through. Oink oink. Skybolt Pig looked at Lin Yi enviously. This little thing couldn't understand how Lin Yi, who looked like he didn't have any strength at all, became stronger in such a short amount of time. What was going on? Huh? Little guy, you want to level up too? Lin Yi broke through to mystic late phase, and his mood was very good. Naturally, his attitude towards Skybolt Pig got better as well. Oink oink. Skybolt Pig quickly nodded. All right. Linny agreed quickly. "I'll use this breakthrough to turn you into a mystic high-class pig." Oink oink. Skybolt Pig heard Lin Yi's words and started dancing in excitement. "But I'll leave the task of finding the fire spirit's fruit to you. You'll have to work hard," Linny reminded. To be continued. School Beauty's Personal Expert 1482. School Beauty's Personal Expert Chapter 1482. Mystic Late Phase update complete. Chapter 1485. Campus Bells Personal Expert 1483. Campus Bells Personal Expert Chapter 1483. School Beauty's Personal Master Chapter 1483. Slapping his face, oink. Skybolt Pig nodded in agreement. "Come on then, little thing." Lin Yi picked up Skybolt Pig and entered the jade space again. He could feel that Skybolt Pig didn't have any practitioner's arts. The energy in his body was accumulated from treasures, very similar to Lin Yi's all-purpose energy. After Lin Yi's energy entered Skybolt Pig's body, it merged perfectly with the energy from before. It seemed like the pure chi in a spirit beast's body was the same as his own energy. No wonder General Weiwu could level up. Healing spirit beasts were similar to other spirit beasts, except that they had the natural ability to transfer all-purpose energy to others. General Weiwu happened to have this ability, and that was why Elder Yu treated it as a healing spirit beast. Other spirit beasts had different abilities, but the all-purpose energy in their body was the same. It was just that they didn't know how to transfer it. Although this energy was all-purpose, it couldn't be transferred to others before it was transferred. Even if it was all-purpose, it wouldn't help. So, only people like Lin Yi, who practiced all-purpose energy, could use it. This was one of the weaknesses of spirit beasts. When Skybolt Pig broke through to the early phase of Mystic, the sky was already bright. Linny patted the little guy in front of him lightly and smiled. "All right, little guy. Hide yourself. I'm going to see my old friend." Yu Bing probably didn't sleep well the whole night, right? With that thought, Lin Yi felt touched, although he didn't get along with the common House Yu. And some people in the hidden House Yu, his friendship with Yu Bing was real. But the friendship between him and Yu Bing was real. It didn't matter if it was because of Yu Ning or not. Yu Bing treated him as a friend, and so he was very grateful. If there was a chance, Lin Yi would definitely repay him, but Yu Bing didn't need anything at the moment. Skyball Pig had just broken through and was running around the house excitedly when he heard Lin Yi's words. Reluctantly, he found a place to hide. Before the trial began, Lin Yi did not plan to let too many people know about the existence of the Skyball Pig in order to avoid unnecessary trouble. Once the trial began, everyone was destined to become enemies. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of others robbing it. The worst that could happen was a fight. However, he believed that if these people couldn't see through the secret of the Skyball Pig and just treated it as an ordinary profound rank pet with no attack power, no one would rob it. This kind of thing was useless. In the ancient sects, there were many people who raised some spirit beasts as pets. However, although these spirit beasts were powerful, their combat power was very weak. They would not cause much harm to humans. Lin Yi pushed the door open and walked out of the bedroom to see Zhao Qiqun, Zhao Qijiu, and two people he didn't know. One of them looked similar to Yu Bing, so he should be Yushan from House Yu. As for the other person, Lin Yi had never seen him before, but he felt like he had seen him before. He couldn't tell who he looked like. Isn't this Brother Ling? How are you? Are you all right? I heard that you were injured yesterday, so I wanted to go see you, but I didn't want to disturb you. Are you all right? Zhao Qiqun pretended to greet Lin Yi. Zhao Qiqun was obviously more shrewd than Yushan. He already knew that Lin Yi couldn't be roped in, and Lin Yi was already crippled. But after all, they had drunk together before, so he still pretended to comfort him. Thank you for your concern, Brother Zhao. I'm fine. Lin Yi smiled and nodded at this Qiqun. Towards this Zhao Qiqun, Lin Yi didn't have much of a bad impression of him. This person was smooth, but he was easier to get along with than Qibing. His instincts told him that they were enemies just like Yu Bing and Yushan. Nothing? He's probably crippled and is about to say goodbye to my brother? Yushan said in a strange tone, but that big brother of mine sure is unlucky. He just found an ally, but he became a cripple. How sad. How sad. Yushan used to be a reserved person, but after suddenly becoming Mi Tian's boss, his ego swelled up, and he started to do some crazy things. Kacha! The door next to Lin Yi's was pushed open, and Yu Bing glared at Yushan. Yushan, what did you say? Say it again. What? Did I say something wrong? Did I step on your sore spot? You couldn't take it anymore and jumped out? Yushan curled his lips as he looked at Yu Bing. Yushan, you're getting more and more out of hand. Yu Bing was furious. You've been picking on me all the time, and I've tolerated it. But you shouldn't treat other people's pain like a joke. Who do you think you are? Nitian was getting impatient after hearing Yu Bing's nagging. He wanted to go out to eat, but he was delayed here. Naturally, he wasn't happy about it. Who are you? This is House Yu's business. You have no right to butt in. Yu Bing didn't expect someone else to help Yushan. No right to butt in? Nitian raised his hands and made a weird hand sign in the air. He smiled coldly. Ignorant trash. It's as easy as flipping my hand to kill you. With that, Nitian raised his right hand and slapped Yu Bing across the face with a loud slap. He then slapped the other side of Yu Bing's face with another slap. Yu Bing was slapped across the other side of his face. Yu Bing, on the other hand, just stood there, not moving at all. It was as if he was waiting to be slapped. He didn't do anything at all. Lin Yi was quite far away, but he could see Yu Bing's expression. Yu Bing's face was filled with rage, but he didn't move at all. He didn't even fight back. This surprised Lin Yi. Yu Bing didn't look like a coward at all. Yesterday, when Zhang Naipeo was so powerful, Yu Bing still wanted to stand up for him, but Lin Yi stopped him with a glance. Today, someone was slapping his face in front of everyone, and he didn't react at all. What was going on? After slapping Yu Bing twice, Nitian clapped his hands nonchalantly. He turned to Qi Kun, Qi Jiu, and Yushan. Let's go. I'm starving to death. Listening to this trash is so annoying. Lin Yi hesitated, but he didn't stop him. Lin Yi didn't know what Yu Bing was planning. Why did Yu Bing choose to endure it? Was there something he didn't know? Since Yu Bing was enduring it, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't act rashly. To be continued. School Beauty's Personal Master 1483. School Beauty's Personal Master Chapter 1483. Slapping face, slapping completed. Chapter 1486. School Beauty's Personal Master 1484. School Beauty's Personal Master Chapter 1484. Shock Fong Nitian didn't even look back when he left, but Yushan turned around and laughed. Big bro. How was it? Good, right? You're not that good. Are you? In front of Nitian bro. You're just trash. Ha ha. At this time, Yu Bing's face flashed with anger, but he didn't reply, and this made Lin even more confused. It wasn't until the four of them were far away that Yu Bing raised his clenched fist unwillingly. What kind of evil arts is this? I can't even fight back. Could it be that he's from an ancient sect? Is he using the legendary realm? Yu Bing was angry, but he didn't chase after him immediately. He wasn't an idiot, and the opponent's arts were so strange. He hadn't heard of any hidden noble house or normal sect having such a powerful arts. Combined with Zhang Naipeo's arts he saw yesterday, Yu Bing was pretty sure that Feng Nitian was from an ancient sect or an ancient noble house. Plus, the arts he used were similar to the legendary realm that his grandpa had mentioned before, but this kind of realm was extremely difficult to practice, and it was limited by the body's constitution. Not everyone could practice it, and so Yu Bing didn't think too much of it. But now that he had experienced it himself, he knew how scary it was. At that moment, his body seemed to be bound by something. He couldn't move at all. He had a body full of anger, but he couldn't vent it. If someone really used this mental cultivation method against an enemy, wouldn't that be the same as standing there waiting for death? It was too scary. What? That person is from an ancient sect? Lin Yi didn't quite understand what Yu Bing was talking about. What's a realm? Do you know? Ling Yi before. When he slapped me, I couldn't move at all, and I couldn't fight back. It was like I was tied down by an invisible force, and I was paralyzed. Yu Bing smiled bitterly. If I'm not wrong, that person is from an ancient noble house or an ancient sect. People like that, we can't afford to mess with them. Forget it. Just like Zhang Naipeo yesterday, the practitioner's arts they practice are too powerful to us. He's someone we can only look up to. He's not even on the same level. Another person from the ancient era? Lin Yi frowned. No wonder he felt that Yu Bing's reaction was weird. So this was it. I thought that you didn't make a move because there's something you're hiding. Otherwise, I would have made a move. It's fortunate that you didn't make a move. Otherwise, you'd get beaten up too. Yu Bing sighed. Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. It's not like a hidden house getting slapped in the face by an ancient house is anything to be proud of. We can't get revenge anyways. We can only blame it on our bad luck. You can't do it, Lin Yi faintly asked, looking pensive. Of course I can't. Right. How are you? Are you still suffering? You look pretty good, haven't you? You've thought it through? Yu Bing waved his hand and stopped talking about his own matters, asking about Lin Yi instead. I'm fine. Let's talk in your room. Lin Yi pointed at the room behind Yu Bing. There weren't many people in the hallway of the inn, but in order to prevent eavesdroppers, it was better to talk in the room. All right, let's go. Yu Bing nodded and went back to his room. He wanted to tell Lin Yi about his discussion with his sister, so that Lin Yi could be at ease. He didn't know if Lin Yi would give up on himself if he left like this. That wasn't what he and his sister wanted to see. Lin Yi followed Yu Bing into the room and closed the door. It seems like this test is going to be fun. A Zhang Naipeo and that ancient noble house guy, we have opponents. We? Yu Bing paused. You still want to participate in the test? Are you kidding me? Lin Yi, you may have lost all your strength, but you don't have to force yourself, and you don't have to give up on yourself. I've already told Ning about your situation. Don't worry, we'll help you. Did you tell her? Lin Yi couldn't help but smile bitterly. I've been thinking about it, and I decided that I can't hide this from her. She'll be worried, but I need her help to get you some medicine from her house. Yu Bing said, Don't worry, with me and Ning here, we'll help you get back on the path of training. You talk too fast. Lin Yi shrugged, not sure if he should laugh or cry. I told you yesterday, it's fine. I don't need medicine. Lin Yi, with our relationship, you don't have to be so courteous. You don't have to be so polite. Yu Bing insisted. You and I, what's there to be polite about? We're old friends, Lin Yi said, but I really don't need it. I don't need to go back on the path of training. What are you talking about? Yu Bing paused after hearing Lin Yi's words. Could it be that Zhang Naipeo used your qi to break through and you got stimulated? Lin Yi didn't have a choice. He channeled the art of dragon mastery, unleashing his strength as a mystic late phase. Facts speak louder than words. And Lin Yi knew that no matter what he said, Yu Bing would think that he was just comforting him. He'd let him see it for himself. Enemy? Feeling Lin Yi's channeling of his arts, Yu Bing subconsciously thought that it was an enemy, but he came to his senses the next second. His eyes widened as he looked at Lin Yi as if he'd seen a ghost. How did you? Mystic late phase. I've broken through, Lin Yi said as he retracted his qi back into his body and stopped his practitioner's arts. You're not crippled? You can still break through? Yu Bing felt like he'd heard a fairy tale. Didn't you become a cripple yesterday? I only lost my strength yesterday, and I'm back after a nap. Lin Yi said, I told you yesterday that I'm fine. I'm really fine. Fuck. Yu Bing suddenly felt that the ancient sects and noble houses were nothing compared to this guy in front of him. This guy was the real deal. He lost his strength yesterday, and now he broke through. Grandpa said that Xiao Ning was the hope of House Yu's glory, and if Xiao Ning really pulled Lin Yi over to House Yu's side, that would be amazing. Was this guy a cockroach? He was heavily injured yesterday, and now he was fine? To be continued. School Beauty's Personal Master 1484. School Beauty's Personal Master Chapter 1484. Shocking update complete. Chapter 1487. School Beauty's Personal Master 1485. School Beauty's Personal Master Chapter 1485. Rumors, and Rumors article from Percent. Don't let Zhang Naipeo know about this first. We'll give him a surprise later. Of course. Yu Bing quickly nodded. You scare me to death. I thought you were just comforting me yesterday, but now I know that you're telling the truth. It's all right. Let's go out for a meal and get some information. Lin Yi wanted to know more about Feng Nitian so that he could prepare a countermeasure during the test. But this guy's practitioner's arts were just too strange. With me looking like this, wouldn't I be a joke if I went out? Yu Bing pointed at his swollen cheeks and shook his head with a bitter smile. Lin Yi channeled the art of dragon mastery and touched Yu Bing's face. All right, can we go now? All right? Yu Bing paused. He was about to say that he was joking when he realized that his face wasn't hurting anymore. He quickly touched it subconsciously and was surprised to find that his cheeks had returned to normal. There was no sign of swelling at all. I'm done. Lin Yi nodded with certainty. I'm going crazy. Yu Bing looked at Lin Yi, his eyes glowing green. You actually have a healing type of qi? How is that possible? Isn't that something only people from House Sun can do? Are you related to House Sun? Related? I don't think so. If I had to say, House Sun's son Jingyi is my half-lover. Lin Yi said, half-lover? Yu Bing paused, but didn't ask. He didn't understand why Lin Yi could accept Sun Jingyi, could accept other girls, but not Ning. Was it really because of the resistance from his own family? It's fake. Lin Yi smiled. In name only. Let's go out for a meal. All right. Yu Bing took a deep breath. In the past 2 days, he had seen all kinds of ruthless people one after another. His heart couldn't take it and was about to explode. Yesterday's Zhang Naipeo, today's Feng Nitian, in Yu Bing's eyes. They were all people he could only look up to, but in front of him, however, there was still a ruthless person who was even more powerful than them, that he had almost overlooked. It was only now that Yu Bing sighed at his sister's sharp eyesight. His father was an idiot. A person like Lin Yi was simply an existence that couldn't be roped in even with a lantern. But his father and grandfather just didn't like him. One had to know how popular the practitioners of the Sun family in the secular world were, not to mention the aristocratic families in the secular world. Even the hidden aristocratic families and sects wanted to form a marriage alliance with the Sun family. There was once an ancient sect that formed a marriage alliance with the Sun family. What they valued was none other than the Sun family's ability to heal and transmit spiritual qi. But does Lin Yi also know how to heal? But is Lin Yi's healing ability like House Sun's, only effective on one person? With that thought, Yu Bing couldn't help but ask, Lin Yi, your healing ability, can it be used on other people too? Yes, it can be used on animals too. Lin Yi nodded. It can be used on animals too. Yu Bing took in a cold breath, a glimmer of hope flashing in his eyes. He quickly asked, what about ancient spirit beasts? Does it work? I think so. Lin Yi nodded curiously and looked at Yu Bing confused. Why do you ask? When Xiaoning was young, she saved an injured ancient spirit beast, and it's been in house use care ever since. Many doctors and pharmacists have seen it, but they couldn't cure it. Luckily, ancient spirit beasts have a very strong life force. As long as the qi in its body doesn't run out, it'll be able to sustain its life. I've been taking care of it all these years. Yu Bing explained, I really hope to find a doctor who can cure this ancient spirit beast. Can you help me out? Lin Yi didn't think that his casual action would cause so much trouble. If Lin Yi agreed to Yu Bing's request, then he would have to come into contact with Yu Ning. But could Lin Yi say no? Not to mention the fact that Yu Bing was the one who suggested it, and that it was just a small thing for Lin Yi to do, just from the fact that he was injured and what Yu Ning told Yu Bing to say to him. Lin Yi couldn't just stand by and watch. Putting aside the fact that Yu Bing was the one who brought it up, it was a piece of cake for Lin Yi, just from the fact that he was injured and what Yu Ning told Yu Bing to say to him. Lin Yi couldn't just stand by and watch. There will be a chance Yu Bing understood what Lin Yi meant and smiled. There will be a chance Yu Bing understood Lin Yi's meaning and smiled. The two walked out of the inn and walked to the nearest food stall. Many of the participants were eating here, and the fact that Lin Yi was crippled by Naipeo yesterday wasn't a secret. So, when Lin Yi appeared, everyone looked at him with all sorts of expressions. Some were sympathetic, some were mocking, some were gloating, and some were wondering why Lin Yi didn't hurry back to think of a solution. Why did he continue staying here? But Lin Yi didn't care about all this. He found a table and sat down with Yu Bing. He ordered a few dishes and started eating. These people were just curious, and after Lin Yi and Yu Bing started eating, they didn't care about them anymore. They all went back to their previous topic, but some of the people at the table saw Lin Yi, and the topic changed to Zhang Naipeo and Feng Nitian. Did you see that? That Zhang Naipeo from the ancient sects, you can't mess with him. That Lin Yi is the result of messing with him. A disciple of a hidden house said softly. Although his voice was soft, it didn't escape Yu Bing and Lin Yi's ears. They were all practitioners, and they were so close to each other. Naturally, they could hear it clearly, but Lin Yi and Yu Bing pretended like they didn't hear anything. They were here to get information, and they didn't talk much. They just kept eating. Yeah, that Zhang Naipeo is very strong, but I heard that Feng Nitian is just as strong as him. His skills are just too strong. Another disciple from a small sect added, I heard that he has a field. Just now, did you guys see it? That Yu Bing beside Ling Yi. He was slapped in the face by Feng Nitian's field. He couldn't fight back. It was just too strong. That Feng Nitian is also from the ancient house Feng. He's on the same level as the ancient sections. Us hidden houses and normal sects can't mess with him. The other person also sighed and said, during the trial, we should hide. If we meet these two people, we will only be waiting for death. Yeah, we can hide if we can't mess with them. However, those two over there are really unlucky. They've offended two ancient level enemies in one go, unless they don't continue to participate in the trials. Otherwise, in the trials, TSK, the results can be imagined. The disciple from the hidden family who had spoken before said, with a bit of pity, to be continued. School Beauty's personal expert, 1485. School Beauty's personal expert, text chapter 1485. Gossips has been updated. Chapter 1488. School Beauty's Personal Master 1486. School Beauty's Personal Master Chapter 1486. Good news here's a piece of good news. This article came from Percent. Yeah, how unlucky, but there's nothing we can do about it. We can't afford to mess with ancient people. The disciple of the small sect who spoke before also nodded in agreement. However, in my opinion, these things don't have much to do with us. As long as we are careful, it'll be fine. We can't care about what happens to others. Yes. Another person nodded in agreement. After the meal, Lin Yi and Yu Bing stood up and left. They had more or less gotten the information they wanted. The person who was with Yushan this morning was called Feng Nitian from the ancient house Feng. His ultimate skill was heaven-defying arts, able to freeze people for around 3 minutes. What do you think? Do you have a plan? Yu Bing was very worried after hearing their discussion. Now that the grudge had been formed, he believed that if Zhang Naipeo met Lin Yi in the test, he wouldn't hold back at all. He would kill him. And since Yushan was with Feng Nitian, he would be in danger as well. Yushan would probably use Feng Nitian to get rid of him, clearing the way for him to become the young master. If that happened, then he and Lin Yi would have offended the two strongest people in the test. He couldn't help but worry. Lin Yi was amazing as well, but 2 fists couldn't fight against 4 hands, and Feng Nitian's arts couldn't be easily countered. At least Yu Bing didn't know how to do it. This was a secret art passed down from the ancient times. It wasn't something a normal practitioner's arts could defend against. The feeling of being bound by Nitian was still fresh in Yu Bing's mind. He really couldn't move at all, and if Nitian wanted to kill him, he would have just stood there and waited for his death. Are you all right? Lin Yi said faintly, I haven't thought of a complete solution yet. High-quality text first, all below. But we can take the risk, or we can strike first. On the other hand, Lin Yi felt more at ease after hearing about Feng Nitian's situation. Zhang Naipeo and Feng Nitian were good. They both had some achievements in the underhanded ways, but when it came to fighting face-to-face, Zhang Naipeo and Feng Nitian were the same. They might not have any advantage. In that case, Lin Yi could play to his strengths and avoid his weaknesses. As long as he could find a way to overcome their consummate skills, it would be much easier to deal with them. Although Lin Yi had no solution for the time being, Lin Yi felt that finding a solution was only a matter of time. It was not a difficult task. That's good. Yu Bing placed all his hopes on Lin Yi. If Lin Yi had a way, then that would be great. Although Yu Bing said that, he was still a little worried. But no matter what, he couldn't back out from this test. That would mean that he had lost to Yushan, and even his grandfather and father would not be able to support him. It seemed that the road ahead was exceptionally dangerous. Lin Yi could tell that Yu Bing was worried. Before they went back to their rooms, Lin Yi patted Yu Bing's shoulder. He consoled, "Don't worry. When the time comes, it's fine if these two people from the ancient era don't provoke me. If they do, don't blame me for being impolite. I'll make them come here standing and send them back in wheelchairs." Ha, good. Have you this sentence? I'm relieved. Yu Bing was relieved after hearing that. Thinking about Lin Yi's miracles, maybe a miracle really could happen. Lin Yi went back to his room to think of a plan. Yu Bing, on the other hand, returned to his room. He immediately dialed his sister Yuning's phone. "Brother, how is he? Is he okay?" Yuning and Yu Bing were the same. They didn't sleep well the whole night. Yuning was thinking about how to get the medicine from the family, and she was also worried about Lin Yi's safety. She kept her phone close to her hand, waiting for her brother to contact her. So at the moment when the phone rang, Yuning answered it. "You picked up already?" Yu Bing paused, but immediately understood what his sister was thinking. He smiled. "Ning, you look worried. And, brother, why are you still joking at a time like this?" Yuning wasn't happy, but it was her brother. So she couldn't get angry. "Huh, are you joking? I don't have the mood to joke with you." Yu Bing stopped teasing Yuning and said directly, "Sister, let me tell you a good news." "What good news?" "I don't want to hear it first." Yuning said, "Brother, tell me first, how is he?" "Sister, you're too worried. You really don't want to hear the good news?" "The good news is about Lin Yi." Yu Bing smiled. "Lin Yi? His good news? Isn't he?" Yuning frowned slightly, and her face suddenly lit up. "There's a turn for the better?" "Sister, your eyesight is really out of this world. I have to admire you. You're really good at reading people." Yu Bing sighed. "Do you know? Yesterday, Lin Yi was crippled, really crippled. He had no strength left in him. I could feel that he was even weaker than a normal person, but this morning he came to find me. And guess what? He recovered half." Yuning made a bold guess. Although she felt that it was impossible, she had never heard of anyone recovering half of their strength in one night. However, her brother had praised Lin Yi before and even said that she had good eyesight. That must mean that Lin Yi was very strong, so Yuning made a bold guess. Although when her brother said that her eyesight was out of this world, Yuning blushed a little, but now she couldn't care about these details. "No, guess again." Yu Bing shook his head to keep her in suspense. "Then he recovered a third?" Yuning lowered her assumption. After all, her previous guess was too bold. "Sister, can't you guess more boldly? Is your eyesight that bad? Think about it. That's out of this world." Yu Bing shook his head. "Could it be that he recovered to his original state? That's not possible. Right? Really?" Yuning exclaimed in surprise. "He didn't recover to his original state," Yu Bing said. "I knew it. If he could recover in one night, he wouldn't be human." Yuning patted her chest. She was shocked by herself. "I haven't finished yet." Yu Bing said, "He didn't recover to his original state. He broke through. He was at the peak of the middle phase before, but this morning he's at the late phase." Ah, after Yuning heard it, she was so shocked that she almost threw the phone in her hand. She held the phone tightly, and her breathing became a little rough. "Brother, are you telling the truth? You're not lying to me? Why would I lie to you? Don't you trust your own eyesight?" Yu Bing couldn't help but smile bitterly when he heard his sister's excited voice. In fact, he was shocked when he first heard the news. To be continued. School Beauty's Personal Expert 1486. School Beauty's Personal Expert Chapter 1486. Good news, let me tell you a piece of good news. Chapter 1489. School Beauty's Personal Expert 1487. School Beauty's Personal Expert Chapter 1487. Ice Palace, someone from the Ice Palace this article came from. Percent. That's unbelievable. He broke through? Yuning's face flashed a blush of happiness. Sure enough, her brother said that her eyesight was not bad. It seemed that it was really not bad. She knew he wasn't simple. He wasn't weaker than her at all. Yeah, I'm telling you the good news. You don't have to worry anymore, Yu Bing said. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up first. The plan is canceled as well. Okay. Yu Ning nodded happily. As for the ancient houses and sects, Yu Bing didn't talk too much with his sister. He realized that he was worrying too much. Linny was fine before, but he was so worried that his sister was worried as well. So this time, Yu Bing learned his lesson and told Yu Ning about what happened here after the test was over. Who knows, maybe he and Lin Yi would be able to pass the test without a hitch. Yang Chi-Chi came to the inn and stayed in her room. Her personality was like that, very cold, and she didn't want to make friends. Her goal here was simple, to participate in the test. So she didn't know what happened these 2 days. She didn't even know that Lin Yi was here. At around 8 o'clock in the evening, a loud and clear voice suddenly came from outside the inn. High-quality text first, all at percent. All students participating in the Ice Palace test. Attention! The registration period has ended, and we will begin the registration process now. All students of the inn, please gather at the plaza in front of the inn in 10 minutes to accept the registration from the Ice Palace messengers and pay the deposit. We will not wait after the deadline. The voice was full of energy, indicating that the speaker was very strong. But those who were familiar with the voice should be able to recognize it. The person who shouted was actually the owner of the inn, Earth Class. This startled Lin Yi. He didn't think that the owner of the inn was an Earth Class, and when he stayed in the inn before, in other words, this old man had used some sort of secret technique to conceal his cultivation. This surprised Lin Yi. It seemed that the ancient sects were not on the same level as the hidden houses. None of the ancient sects were simple. Lin Yi quickly left the room, and Yu Bing's door opened at the same time. The two looked at each other and prepared to go downstairs together. At that moment, Yang Chi-Chi walked out from a room not too far away. She paused when she saw Lin Yi. Chi-Chi didn't understand. Why was this guy here again? She couldn't help but curse her unluck. Seeing him reminded her of the time when he saw her body, but she couldn't beat him. She couldn't kill him. Not to mention that he was her savior. This troubled her even more. Yang Chi-Chi didn't think about it when she didn't see Lin Yi. She even tried to forget about Lin Yi. After all, it was like a nightmare to her. But now that she saw Lin Yi, she couldn't help but remember those unhappy memories. She frowned and turned her head away, not looking at Lin Yi anymore. At the same time, Zhao Qikun, Zhao Qijiu Yushan, and Feng Nitian walked out as well. Zhao Qikun saw Lin Yi and was as passionate as ever. He didn't seem to be affected by what happened in the morning. Brother Ling Yi, are you still going to join the test? Because Lin Yi was going downstairs with Yu Bing. Naturally, he was going to sign up for the test. This surprised Zhao Qikun. Could Lin Yi still participate in the test in his current condition? Without strength, wouldn't it be suicide to participate in the test? Yeah, Lin Yi nodded. He didn't explain much. On the other hand, when Chi-Chi heard Zhao Qikun call Lin Yi, a strange look flashed across her eyes. Ling Yi? He was called Ling Yi? How could he have this name? Wasn't he called Lin Yi? Yes, it must be because he was called Lin Yi. He didn't want people to know his real name. So he changed his name to Ling Yi. Let's just say it, high-quality text first, all are percent. Ling Yi was such a good name. How could he call himself that? But this guy was really despicable, calling himself that person's name. If there was a chance, she wouldn't let him go. How dare he use Yi's name? Some people really don't fear death. Naipeo's voice rang. He saw Lin Yi as well. Even he didn't think that Lin Yi would still be here. He was a cripple now. What was the point of staying here? But for a cripple like Lin Yi, Naipeo didn't care anymore. Even if he did, he'd do it in front of Liang Bro. If he killed Lin Yi here, Liang Bro wouldn't be happy, but he didn't forget to make fun of Lin Yi. Thank you for the chi you trained so hard. It helped me break through to Mystic Late Phase. TSK, it feels so good. You're welcome, Linny said faintly. Ha 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 ha. Naipeo started laughing crazily. Naipeo bro, you're amazing. Congratulations. Fong Nitian congratulated. He and Naipeo belonged to the ancient class, and there was no need for them to fight each other here. After all, they were the strongest here, and if they were to fight the hidden houses, and small sects would think that it was a dog-eat-dog fight, and that wouldn't be interesting at all. Plus, Fong Nitian's goal was to become the head of House Fong, and Naipeo's goal was to become the disciple of the Grand Elder. It was good for them to get to know more powerful people, and so, other than the first few, who were sucking up to them, the two of them didn't accept any other disciples. If they all joined their side, then the test would lose its meaning, and it would become a fight between the two of them. That wasn't something they wanted to see. And they had agreed during breakfast that they wouldn't interfere with each other's teams. They'd work together to steal points from other teams. Nitian Bro is amazing. As well, I don't think I'll get a higher score than you in this test, Naipeo said with a smile. What he said was the truth. Nitian only needed to use one move, and he'd be able to bind the others. He didn't even need to lift a finger, and he'd be able to steal their points. But Naipeo wasn't worried at all. He didn't even need to lift a finger, and he'd be able to scare the others into giving up their points. Otherwise, they'd become trash like Lin Yi. Hearing the two big shots flattering each other, Lin Yi's lips curled into a cold smile. They still wanted to do well in the test. Just wait and see. Lin Yi and Yu Bing walked down the stairs side by side, ignoring the people behind them. Yang Chi-Chi, on the other hand, followed closely behind Lin Yi. Zhuang Niapeo, on the other hand, couldn't help but humphed coldly when he saw Yang Chi-Chi. To be continued. School Beauty's Personal Expert 1487. School Beauty's Personal Expert Chapter 1487. Ice Palace's Personal Expert. The people from Ice Palace had finished updating. Chapter 1490. Zhuang Niapeo had always had his eyes on Chi-Chi, but Naipeo didn't seem to be interested in her at all, so he couldn't make a decision on his own. He could only smile coldly and think about how he would open the door for her during the test. Although the inn owner had given them a time limit of 10 minutes, none of the participants dared to waste any time. It wasn't even 5 minutes when they all arrived at the plaza in front of the inn. Lin Yi and Yu Bing found a spot first and sat cross-legged on the ground. The other disciples came over and copied Lin Yi and Yu Bing, finding their own spots to sit down. The owner of the inn, on the other hand, was standing straight on the flower altar in front of the square, his Earth Class Late Phase peak power fully displayed, not hiding anything at all. Beside him was a woman dressed in white, around 10 or so years of age, but Lin Yi's intuition and years of medical experience told him that this woman was definitely older than that. She should be at least 30 years old, but she took good care of herself. Was it because of her training in the heart? Or was it because she had entered Sky Class, reducing the aging of her face? But entering Sky Class didn't mean that one could regain their youthfulness. After entering Sky Class, one's face was fixed at the moment before they entered Sky Class. This meant that this girl had broken through to Sky Class at 18? Was that even possible? Or perhaps the ancient noble houses had pills that could keep one's face forever, like the face pill. Lin Yi had seen this recipe in Zhang Liju's notes before, but while it could keep one's face forever, it couldn't extend one's lifespan. Even so, it was still a golden class 4th level pill, and it was extremely difficult to make. The success rate was very low, and if the Ice Palace had it, then it wouldn't be easy. Soon, all the disciples who had come to participate in the trial had arrived. They all sat down with their legs crossed, waiting for the Ice Palace envoy to speak. The woman nodded indifferently when she saw that everyone had arrived and said, "Since everyone is here, Then let's begin. Let me introduce myself. I'm Xiao Qing, the maidservant of the Ice Palace's palace master. I'm also the emissary who will be bringing you to the Ice Palace's territory for the trial. Although this woman was just a servant, no one dared to look down on her. Looking at the way the owner was treating her with respect, it was easy to tell. The owner was an Earth-class late-phase peak, half a step in a sky class, but he was being so respectful to this servant. One could only imagine her position in the Ice Palace, the palace master's maidservant. If the palace master was someone with absolute authority in the Ice Palace, then her maidservant was probably on the same level as the elders. You can call her Emissary Qing or Elder Qing. The owner reminded all the trial challengers present to prevent them from calling Little Blue the emissary and causing a lot of trouble. Of course, they weren't idiots. If they couldn't even see through this, then they weren't fit to participate in this trial. These people were all smart people. How could they not understand this? Most of you are from hidden aristocratic families and sects, but there are a few who are special. They are from ancient aristocratic families and ancient sects. Qing paused and glanced at the disciples present. She continued, but in the eyes of the Ice Palace, there is no special treatment. We will treat everyone the same and will not give special treatment. Don't think that you have any sense of superiority. Otherwise, the Ice Palace will stop your right to participate and send out a notice to the ancient level. Your conduct will be reported, and you will be listed as a member of the Black Viper sect. Other than Naipeo and Nitian, many of the hidden houses and sect's disciples were in an uproar after hearing Qing's words. Wasn't this Ice Palace a little too much? They didn't even give the ancient house phone and the sect any face at all. Naipeo and Nitian, on the other hand, knew that the Ice Palace was like a giant dam in the ancient sections. They didn't participate in the battle against the Day and Day sect back then. If they did, then the Day and Day sect wouldn't be doing so well right now. The Ice Palace belonged to a relatively neutral force, drifting between the righteous and evil factions. The Ice Palace's people rarely participated in those struggles. Instead, they focused on cultivation. This was also the reason why the Ice Palace had so many heaven rank experts. Don't worry, Elder Qing, since Brother Feng and I are in the Ice Palace's territory, we will follow the rules. Naipeo stood up and cupped his fist. Yes, Brother Naipeo is right. We are here to participate in the trial, and we must follow the rules like everyone else. Nitian said, Very good. Qing nodded and continued, Now, I'll briefly explain the rules of the trial. If you don't accept it, then you can leave. If you don't, then you'll have to pay the deposit. Tomorrow morning, the trial will officially begin. Xiao Li, read out the rules of the trial. Yes, Elder Qing. The owner hurriedly nodded his head as he announced the rules of the trial in a clear voice. The duration of this trial is 3 days. The trial location is the Ice Palace's outer perimeter, the Ice Snow Spirit Mountain. During the trial, you will be required to traverse various perilous situations and harvest various herbs. Every time you obtain a herb, you will be rewarded with corresponding points. The points will be automatically assessed according to the quality of the herb. Of course, you can fight each other for points as well, but remember, you can hurt people, but you can't put people in danger. If you break this rule, you will be severely punished by the Ice Palace. This rule wasn't present in the previous trials. In the past trials, everyone had their own destiny, and the Ice Palace wouldn't interfere. But this time it was different, because there were disciples from ancient noble houses and ancient sects joining the trials. The Ice Palace added this rule for the sake of safety. 1. They were afraid that the disciples of the ancient noble houses and ancient sects would act recklessly and kill the disciples of the hidden houses and normal sects. Secondly, they were afraid that the disciples of the hidden aristocratic families and ancient sects would band together and attack the disciples of the ancient sects and ancient aristocratic families. This would increase the conflict, and the Ice Palace would form a grudge with the hidden aristocratic families and ancient aristocratic families. In the future, not only would he not be able to continue holding trials to earn money, he would also have to form a grudge with the sect of Tomorrow for Tomorrow and the ancient Foam clan. Chapter 1491. As soon as this rule was announced, all the challengers were very surprised. This was because this rule was different from what they had heard from their elders at home. However, most of them were very happy after hearing it. At least, no matter what, they would be able to keep their lives and would not lose their lives. The stronger ones didn't mind, but there were many early phase mystic class participants here, and they were a bit worried. This rule made them feel better. However, a lot of people still turned their attention to Lin E. Suspicious. Why did it seem like the rules were made for this guy? He didn't have any strength and was even weaker than a normal person. If he went to the trial, people wouldn't dare do anything to him. If they used too much strength, they could kill him. If he failed, not only would he not be able to participate in the test, but he'd also be breaking the rules of the Ice Palace, bringing trouble to themselves. A lot of people had the same thought. If Lin E was going to participate in the test, they should stay away from him and not let him stick to them. In addition, the entire process of the trial will be recorded on the electronic card that I will send to you later. Your points will also be displayed on the electronic card. The owner said, including during the trial, if the medicinal herbs in your hands are snatched by others, then the points will be transferred accordingly. But be careful, don't damage the ingredients because of fighting. Not only will you not get any points, but you will also get points deducted. Card, isn't it jade? A descendant of a family had clearly heard that the recording device in the trial was a piece of jade, and not an electronic card. So he subconsciously asked, jade is something used in the past, and with the advancement of technology, the recording devices of the Ice Palace have naturally been changed to technology. The cost of a jade to record information is too high. The owner explained, all right, is there anything else you don't understand? If there's no doubt, then I'll register you and collect the security deposit. No, everyone shook their heads. What a joke. Everyone was here to participate in the trial. How could they give up just because of a small change in the rules? Wouldn't that be a waste of time? All right, then let's start from this row. One by one, come up and register. Swipe your card to pay the deposit. The owner said to the closest participants, yes. The trial taker at the front got up and walked over. He filled in his information on the information booklet given by the innkeeper. Just as he was about to swipe his card to pay the deposit, the innkeeper waved his hand. Give me your hand. I want to test your strength. The innkeeper said lightly, can't I just circulate my cultivation method? Do I even need to stretch out my hand? The challenger asked in surprise. Lin E, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes. He'd never seen this participant before. Evidently, he'd been hiding in his room ever since he'd arrived and hadn't come out until the owner called for everyone to gather. However, that wasn't what caught Lin Yi's attention. It was the fact that this person was an Earth-class early-phase spiritual practitioner. He had already exceeded the requirements of the trial. No wonder he was so nervous when the innkeeper wanted to check his strength. No need. Give me your hand. The owner said faintly, The trial taker hesitated, but still reached out his hand. He was secretly channeling his chi and suppressing his strength to mystic late phase peak. He didn't reveal his Earth-class early phase strength. I told you there's no need. What kind of chi are you channeling? The owner looked coldly at the trial taker and scanned his registration information. Gone, Mountain Sect disciple with Jean Dao, pretending to be a mystic late phase peak, has been verified to be an Earth-class early phase. Your right to participate in the trial is revoked. The Gone Mountain Sect will be blacklisted and will not be allowed to participate in the Ice Palace trial for the next 10 years. AI, When the Gone Mountain sect disciple called Wajin now heard the words of the owner, he immediately revealed a dejected expression. He originally thought that hiding his strength wouldn't be discovered. In the end, he was found out when he registered, and even his own sect was banned from participating in the trials for 10 years. But, of course, he didn't dare argue with the Ice Palace people. Without another word, he ran to the parking lot, ready to go back to his sect. Everyone present was shocked at this, including Lin Yi. This owner was quite something indeed. Not only was he able to hide his strength, but he could also sense someone else's true strength through a handshake. Although Lin Yi had this ability as well, Lin Yi had trained in the art of dragon mastery. He had a golden finger. This owner was just a servant of the Ice Palace. How could he have this ability? Is there anyone else hiding their strength? If you leave now, I won't hold your sects and families accountable. Otherwise, when my results come out, your families and sects will also be banned from participating in the Ice Palace's trial for 10 years. The owner looked at everyone present and shouted. This time, a few of the disciples stood up and shook their heads bitterly as they walked to the parking lot. Evidently, these people had been hiding their strength. Lin Yi looked at them and was a bit surprised. There was an Earth-class mid-phase here. Lin Yi couldn't check out their strength one by one, so he was quite shocked by what he saw. No more? Then continue, but if there is someone else mixed in, don't blame me for being impolite. After the owner finished speaking, he pointed to the nearest challenger in front of him and said, "It's your turn." Yes. This person was Naipeo's follower, Zhuang Niapeo. He walked up to the owner respectfully and registered his information before extending his hand. Yes, Mystic Mid-Phase Peak. The owner nodded and looked at his information. Hidden House Zhuang Niapeo. You can go to Elder Qing and swipe your card. Yes. Zhuang Niapeo quickly nodded and took out a bank card to swipe it. After that, the rest of the participants went to register and swipe their cards. But Lin Yi noticed one thing. There were freelancers amongst them, meaning that they didn't belong to any sects or houses. The owner, however, didn't seem to have any qualms with people like this. As long as their strength was up to par, they'd be allowed to pay. Chapter 1492. In a blink of an eye, it was Pai Zhishan and Pai Zhihai's turn. Pai Zhishan went up to register his information, and then extended his hand, waiting for the owner to test his strength. He was the first physical practitioner, but he wasn't sure if the owner could test a physical practitioner's strength. Mystic Late Phase Peak Physical Strength. The owner didn't fail the test just because Pai Zhishan was a physical practitioner. He quickly reported his strength. Go pay the deposit. Yes. Pai Zhishan passed the card to Elder Qing, but kept giving Pai Zhihai looks. Pai Zhihai was an Earth-class early-phase physical practitioner, so there was no way he could pass the test. So Pai Zhishan wanted him to leave as soon as possible. Previously, Pai Zhihai didn't stand up because Pai Zhishan wanted to be lucky. He wasn't sure if the owner could test the strength of a physical master, so he wanted to be the first to test it. If the owner couldn't, then Pai Zhihai would come up as well. If he could, then Pai Zhihai would quickly return home. Pai Zhihai got Pai Zhishan's signal, so he got up to leave but was stopped by the owner. Where are you going? I'm going to give up. I'm not going to the test anymore. Pai Zhihai jumped. You're not going to participate? Why? The owner asked coldly. I'm not feeling well. Pai Zhihai's heart was pounding. The hidden house Pai was powerful in front of normal houses, but in front of an ancient sect, they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Not feeling well? Come here. The owner said, Did I say you could leave? Pai Zhihai didn't dare disobey the owner, and he couldn't run. In front of an Earth-class late-phase peak, what was an Earth-class early phase like him? Plus, he couldn't run away forever. He didn't need to investigate his identity to know that he'd drag House Pai down with him. So Pai Zhihai hesitated but still turned around and walked back. Which family are you from? The inn owner asked. Hidden House Pai Shihai said honestly. Give me your hand. The innkeeper shouted. This is. Although unwilling, Pai Shihai had no choice but to extend his hand and shake the innkeeper's hand. Earth-class early-phase physical power? Humph, the Hidden House Pai's qualification is revoked, and you can't participate for the next 10 years. The inn owner humphed. What about me? Pai Shishan was shocked and quickly asked, Aren't you from the Hidden House Pai? The inn owner asked. Pai Shishan was depressed. If he knew this would happen, he would have asked Pai Zhihai to go back. Along the way, he had asked Pai Zhihai to hide his strength. In the end, he didn't reveal any flaws. He wanted to muddle through and shine in the trial. But he didn't expect that he still couldn't pass this strict test. Physical practitioners are weaker than spiritual practitioners by a level, so he's equivalent to a mystic late-phase peak spiritual practitioner. Zhishan struggled to explain. Are you deaf? The innkeeper snorted. Did I say that external Earth-rank martial artists could participate? Leave now. Don't bring trouble to your Hidden House Pai. I know. Pai Zhishan didn't know what to do. Why was he so unlucky? But he didn't dare say anything about the Ice Palace. He could only say dejectedly, Then my deposit. The deposit is not refundable. It's already been deducted. Qing returned the card to Pai Zhishan coldly. What? Zhishan didn't think that he wouldn't be able to participate in the trial, and he had to pay 100 million. This was a double loss. Wasn't this too bad? But since the Ice Palace said they wouldn't give it to him, he didn't dare ask anymore. He could only leave with Pai Zhihai. The person behind Pai Zhihai was Lin Yi. He was the closest, and seeing Pai Zhishan's pained expression, he couldn't help but laugh. Lin Yi naturally knew who the Hidden House Pai was. To an unfriendly family like this, Lin Yi could only laugh at them. Zhishan heard Lin Yi's laughter, and his expression froze. Hatred flashed across his face as he turned to glare at Lin Yi. It's you? That cripple? Very well, Lin Yi. Right? Pai Zhishan will remember you. We'll meet again. Pai Zhishan was furious, but he didn't dare to vent it on the Ice Palace. To him, this unlucky bastard bumped into him, so he wouldn't be courteous anymore. He would find this Ling Yi to vent his anger on. Yi so said, Next time we meet, you can buy a coffin. Humph. Pai Zhishan laughed coldly. You talk too fast. With the Ice Palace people here, naturally he didn't dare to do anything to Lin Yi. After laughing coldly, he left with Pai Zhihai, but he remembered Lin Yi's face. His hatred with the Hidden House Pai couldn't be resolved anymore. His follower Er Gooden had killed quite a few of their mouths. Even if this didn't happen, they would still be dead. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of offending House Pai. Don't say anything, you register. The inn owner glanced at Lin Yi, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. He had seen Lin Yi being crippled with his own eyes, and now Lin Yi didn't leave, but instead participated in the trial. This further confirmed the inn owner's previous guess. The person who broke through upstairs was Lin Yi in front of him. Yes, Lin Yi registered his information. His strength was mystic late phase, his sect was freelancer, and his name was Ling Yi. After looking at Lin Yi's strength, the inn owner was sure that Lin Yi had broken through. He was very curious and troubled. Just how did this guy do it? Of course, these were personal secrets. Even if the Ice Palace was powerful, they didn't have the right to ask about other people's training methods. Give me your hand. The inn owner couldn't wait to confirm Lin Yi's strength. Chapter 1493. The inn owner shook Lin Yi's hand. The next moment, a look of shock appeared on his face. From what he could sense, Lin Yi didn't have any strength at all. He was no different from a normal person. Could it be that he hadn't recovered and was lying to him? Your strength, the inn owner was about to ask, when he suddenly felt the change in Lin Yi's strength. Lin Yi's strength went from 0 at the beginning to mystic mid-phase peak all of a sudden. Lin Yi could tell from the owner's expression that his guess was right before he used the art of dragon mastery. His strength was hidden. Even someone like the owner couldn't accurately judge his strength. Of course, Lin Yi was just testing it. He wouldn't make things too difficult for the owner. After all, he was the one asking for help from the Ice Palace. And if things went sour, how would Lin Yi get the fruit? Plus, Lin Yi's background was questionable to begin with. Lin Yi naturally wouldn't cause any more problems. But in order to test if he could hide his strength, Lin Yi suppressed it to mystic mid-phase peak to see if the owner could see his full strength. The owner was shocked, a strange look flashing across his eyes as he looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. How could it be mid-phase peak? Lin Yi smiled faintly, no longer holding back. In an instant, his strength as a mystic late phase was displayed to the fullest. The owner looked at Lin Yi meaningfully, but didn't say anything else. Lin Yi's strength could be suppressed, could be hidden, and had already exceeded the scope of the owner's probing. Although he was shocked, this was related to the practitioner's arts, and he couldn't ask about it. This was a taboo in Wulin, and the more ancient a sect was, the more important the rules of Wulin were. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had the right to participate in the trial. Although he could hide his strength, it didn't break any rules. The owner announced, Lin Yi, freelancer, mystic late phase, you can go pay the deposit. What? Mystic late phase? Nai Peo was the first to yell out. He had sucked Lin Yi dry, and he knew that Lin Yi was now a cripple. He couldn't believe that the owner was saying that Lin Yi was a mystic late phase. How was that possible? At the same time, Zhuang Nia Peo, Zhuang Niao Qiang, and the others beside Nai Peo were all shocked as well. They saw the whole process of Lin Yi becoming a cripple with their own eyes. But how could Lin Yi still be a mystic late phase? Could it be a mistake? Although they had their doubts, they weren't Nai Peo, and they didn't have a background like him. They wouldn't dare say anything like that. Li's test, of course, wouldn't be wrong. Do you have any questions? Qing evidently trusted the owner a lot. As she looked at Nai Peo faintly, she didn't give him any face just because he was from an ancient sect. That was how the Ice Palace did things. They'd changed the rules to take care of you guys, and that was already good enough. There was no way they'd give you anything else. No. Nai Peo shook his head. What else could he say after what the guy said? Nai Peo, on the other hand, looked at Lin Yi hatefully. He didn't know why Lin Yi didn't lose his strength, but he warned coldly, I don't care if you're a mystic late phase or not. We'll see what happens in this trial. Only Zhang Nai Peo would dare say something like that. Anyone else would have been scared of the Ice Palace. Of course, Nai Peo knew that he was doing this for Lin Yi, not the Ice Palace. The Ice Palace wouldn't say anything about it. All right, I was just about to get my revenge. Lin Yi nodded to Nai Peo. Nai Peo wanted to say something, but Nitian smiled at him. Do you really need to be angry at someone like that? We'll just cripple him. Those who thought that Lin Yi didn't have any strength now understood that it wasn't that Lin Yi didn't have any strength, but that he had already recovered. Plus, the owner was in charge of the test. No one would be able to pass. Wanting to participate in the trial without strength? That was impossible. You're right. Nai Peo nodded. People like him are like ants. Killing him is just a matter of minutes. Since he's coming to me, that means he's increasing my strength. I'll just turn him into a cripple. I don't believe he'll be able to recover. That's right, Nitian said enviously. Brother Nai Peo, you're so strong. Leveling up is so easy for you. That's true, Nai Peo said proudly, but his heart was filled with bitterness. Who could understand the pain and bitterness of his own training? You guys trained while enjoying yourselves, but I had to train while being bitten by poisonous bugs and bees after castrating myself. How could that compare? Lin Yi looked at these two bragging bastards and smiled coldly. After Lin Yi swiped his card, it was Yu Bing and Yu Shan's turn to test their strength and pay the deposit. The rest of them had a smooth journey as well. No one tried to hide their strength. After collecting everyone's deposits, Little Ching had the innkeeper distribute electronic point cards to everyone. She then said, "Tomorrow morning at 6:30 sharp here, I will lead everyone to the Ice Palace's trial location. Don't wait after the deadline." "Yes," everyone said solemnly. "There's one more thing. I have to remind you all that from the start of the trial to the moment you leave the Ice Palace, nothing is to be leaked. If I find out, you guys will be hunted down by the Ice Palace." Little Ching warned coldly as she glared at the group of people. "Yes," everyone replied. Who would dare try being hunted down by the Ice Palace? Ching didn't say anything else as she turned around and left. In an instant, the strength of a sky-class mid-phase was on full display, making all the disciples gasp in shock. A maidservant of the Ice Palace's palace master was actually at the mid-heaven class. Then, how strong was the palace master? Could she be sky-class late-phase peak? Of course, they only thought about it in their hearts and didn't dare to speculate. This maid was already so powerful, so the palace master must be even more amazing. Little Ching hadn't gone far yet. If she heard them talking behind her back, what would they do? Chapter 1494. In the ancient times, sky class wasn't everywhere, but there were still quite a few. But if one didn't stand at this height, how would one be able to see all this? Life was like that, like a frog in the well. If one didn't go out, they would never know what the outside world was like. At the parking lot, the Pai brothers and Wajin Dao, who hadn't left yet, had a shocked expression on their faces. Sky class, mid-phase at that. A maidservant was even stronger than the elders of the house or sect, and yet she was still a maidservant. Luckily, they didn't try to defend themselves when they were chased out, otherwise they wouldn't even know how they died. Pai Zhishan and Pai Zhihai looked at each other, and the two helplessly got in the car, ready to return to the hidden house Pai. They had stayed in the parking lot to see if there was anything they could do, but it seemed like it was no longer possible. It would be good enough if they didn't get punished. Ling Yi, Pai Zhishan will never forgive you. Just you wait. Zhishan was very furious. Not only did he not get to participate in the test, but he also lost 100 million. How unlucky! But he didn't dare point his finger at the Ice Palace, so he could only vent his anger on Lin Yi. That's just a small figure. It's hard to say if he'll make it back alive. He offended Zhang Naipeo of the Ri after Ri sect and Feng Nitian of the ancient house Feng. Even if he doesn't die, he'll be crippled. Shihai said, "It's fine. Big bro. The test isn't much anymore. I'm already showing signs of breaking through to Earth class early phase peak. Our hidden house Pai has the advantage amongst all the hidden houses. And aren't you about to break through as well?" "That's true." Zhishan nodded. "Plus, our advantage over the other houses is that we're united, unlike the other houses that fight and scheme against each other." "That's right. I think it's great now. I'm not suited to managing a family's affairs. I like to train, so let Big Brother be the leader, and I'll be the assistant. House Pai will be fine for at least 100 years. Pai Zhihai nodded. "Once I break through to Sky Class, my lifespan will increase, and protecting House Pai for a while longer won't be hard." From this, it could be seen that the two brothers from House Pai were smart and capable of doing big things. However, they made a serious mistake, and that was underestimating Lin Yi's strength. They treated Ling Wan and Lin Yi as two different people. After Little Ching left, the innkeeper waved his hand at everyone and said, "Go back and disperse." Only then did everyone get up and walk towards the inn. All of a sudden, Lin Yi felt a cold light coming from behind him, and he subconsciously turned around to see Yushan not far behind him and Yubing. His eyes were cold, and when he saw Lin Yi turn around, he turned around and started chatting with Feng Nitian. Lin Yi frowned. Yushan really wasn't a good person, and he was probably going to do something to Yu Bing in this test. As for why Lin Yi could feel the coldness, it was just an assassin's sixth sense. After returning to the inn, Yu Bing went straight to Lin Yi's room and said worriedly, "Lin Yi, tomorrow's test doesn't look good, but the Ice Palace has a new rule: we can't kill people. This way, we won't be in danger. This rule—" Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "It's better if it didn't come out at all. It's probably to take care of those two disciples from the ancient noble houses, afraid that something bad might happen to them. I was planning to kill them all in this test." As for Zhang Naipeo, Lin Yi didn't have any reason to hold back. This guy was his enemy, and from what he said, he wouldn't rest until one of them was dead. Between him and Pinliang, there was no way he could resolve the conflict. If that was the case, he might as well use this test to break one of Pinliang's arms. But now it seemed impossible. The Ice Palace wouldn't allow that to happen. Ha! Yu Bing's eyes went wide after hearing Lin Yi's words. No way? You want to kill them? Yu Bing was still worried about tomorrow's test, but on Lin Yi's side, he was worried about not being able to kill his enemies. People really were different. If I don't kill them, we'll be enemies sooner or later. Lin Yi said faintly, "Do you think there's any way to resolve the conflict between you and Feng Nitian? He's with Yushan, and he's already your enemy." Sigh. Every house has all sorts of problems. Yu Bing sighed. "I know that, so I want to help you get rid of Yushan as well." Lin Yi smiled. "That guy needs a beating. I can't kill him, but at least cripple him so he can't practice anymore. Yu Bing jumped, not expecting Lin Yi to want to deal with Yushan, and cripple him as well. This suggestion shocked even Yu Bing himself. But as much as Yu Bing hated Yushan, he was still his brother. He couldn't bring himself to do something like that. He was moved when Lin Yi suggested this, but after calming down, he felt that he couldn't do it. "No, Lin Yi, you can't do this. After all, he's my cousin. I can't hurt him." Yu Bing shook his head. "It's not you, it's me." Lin Yi pointed at himself. "This has nothing to do with you. You can push all the blame on me. Plus, I've been displeased with him for a long time now. But I can't just watch you deal with him." Yu Bing still couldn't convince himself. "All right, then can you promise that he won't jump out and cause trouble for us in this test?" Lin Yi asked. I can't." Yu Bing shook his head. "Isn't that fine then? He jumped out and wanted to die. Who can he blame?" Lin Yi shrugged and said, "I promise you, I won't make the first move. Is that okay? But if you touch him, you'll make House You hate you even more. You and Ning," Yu Bing said worriedly. Chapter 1495. "You're right." Yu Bing gritted his teeth. "I'll try my best." "Don't think too much, just leave it to me," Lin Yi said. "Right, do you have confidence in dealing with them?" Yu Bing asked. "A little, but I need to act according to the situation. Around 50%. Lin Yi said honestly. "I've calculated a few possibilities. I hope one of them will work." "That's good enough." Yu Bing breathed in relieved. A 50-50 chance of winning was already very good. After all, a fight between two masters of similar strength always had a 50-50 chance of winning. Not to mention that there was a huge difference in strength between him and Lin Yi right now. "Rest early. The test starts tomorrow," Lin Yi said. "All right." Yu Bing nodded and got ready to leave. "Sleep here. I'm afraid that Yushan will do something to you at night. This is the last chance to kill you before the test starts." Lin Yi remembered the coldness in Yushan's eyes and pointed at the bed beside him. "What about you? There's only a single bed here?" Yu Bing asked. "I won't sleep. I can just sit on the sofa and train." Lin Yi said. "Sleep. Don't worry about time. I'll wake you up when I see you." "All right." Yu Bing nodded, not rejecting him. That night, as Lin Yi had expected, Yushan and Nitian came to the room next to Lin Yi's. "Nitian bro, I'm counting on you. You hold him down, and I'll make my move." Yushan whispered to Nitian, his eyes filled with lust. No problem. Nitian nodded. Feng Nitian's art consumed a lot of qi, and if it wasn't something important, he wouldn't use it. Plus, there was a limit to the number of times he could use it, but today, he was here to help Yushan fight Yubing. The reason wasn't because of Nitian's loyalty, but because Yushan had promised him that once he killed Yubing, he'd have the chance to become the head of House Yu. If he became the head of House Yu, he'd make sure that House Yu would become the vassal of the ancient House Feng. House Yu may be a hidden noble house, but they were the strongest hidden noble house with 2 sky class masters. If he could get House Yu to join House Feng's side, then it would be a huge contribution to Feng Nitian. It would become a bargaining chip for him to fight for the position of the head of the house. Originally, Nitian had promised Yushan to kill Yubing in the test, but the rules changed. Even if he came from an ancient noble house, he wouldn't dare go against the rules of the Ice Palace test. Although the Ice Palace wouldn't kill him if he went against the rules, they'd talk to the elders of House Feng for sure. Nitian would lose face in front of the elders, and it wouldn't be good for him to become the head of the house. So he had no choice but to do it tonight. The test hadn't started yet, and even if he killed Yubing, it wouldn't be against the rules of the Ice Palace. The Ice Palace wouldn't be able to say anything. Yushan took out a small laser ID card decryptor from his pocket and waved it in front of the door. Yubing's lock opened with a click. Even if he didn't meet Nitian, he'd be ready to kill Yubing in this test. This ID card decryptor was prepared for decrypting the door keys. Evidently, he brought it from home and didn't buy it here. There was no way he could buy something like this in such a short amount of time. No one. Although Yushan didn't turn on the lights, he could clearly see the situation in the room with the help of the lights from the square outside the window. A cultivator's eyes and ears were better than the average person's. So Yushan could tell with a glance that there was no one in the room. What Yushan could see, Feng Nitian could see as well. There were no cabinets or anything like that in the room, and the bed was sealed with wood. As well, it couldn't be hidden under the bed. Is there anyone in the washroom? Nitian asked. Yushan opened the bathroom door and took a look. He shook his head and said no. Nitian turned on the lights in the room, and this time he could see more clearly. There was no one in the room. Not here? Nitian was a little disappointed. He'd used the arts in vain, and it didn't work. Could it be in Ling Yi's room next door? My cousin and Ling Yi are really close. He always goes there. Yushan guessed. That's possible. Nitian nodded. Then, let's go next door? In for a penny, in for a pound. We'll kill Ling Yi as well. Yushan's eyes flashed with hatred. Nitian bro, your range is 3 meters, and no one can move within 3 meters. Let's kill Ling Yi as well. That won't do. Nitian shook his head after hearing that Yushan wanted to kill Ling Yi as well. Why? Yushan paused. Ling Yi, Zhang Naipeo, said that he wanted him dead, and if I do anything to him, I'll be meddling in other people's business. Nitian waved his hand. Besides, I heard that Zhang Naipeo doesn't want to kill Ling Yi directly. He wants to keep him alive for his Liang bro to do it himself. So if I kill Ling Yi now, I'll be going against Zhang Naipeo. We're helping him. It shouldn't be a big deal, right? Besides, are you scared of Zhang Naipeo? Nitian bro? Yushan said, unwilling to give up. I'm not scared. I just don't want to offend him. Nitian, of course, saw through Yushan's tactics, but he didn't fight back. We're both from the ancient level. There's no point in making enemies. I see. Yushan was disappointed. So we're just going to let it go. Don't worry, I'll take care of it for you in the test. You can't kill people in the test, but crippling them isn't a problem. As long as they're still breathing, it's not against the rules. Crippling them won't be a threat to you, right? Nitian smiled casually. That's true. Yushan relaxed. If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you. Nitian bro, I'll leave Yubing to you. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.